And welcome to a new episode of the Eastern Lariat podcast, your show for news, notes, reviews, and opinions on the world of Japanese pro wrestling here on cagematch.net. I'm your host, STRIGGA, and he is my good friend, Dylan. It's been a while, Dylan. It's been almost 4 weeks since we last did a show. It was the very beginning of the G1 Climax before we got to the mid-tour drag that we always get. Yeah, I was on vacation a lot this summer. In the last couple of years, I used to plan my summer vacations around the G1 Climax. Well, actually, when it was in the summer. But this year, I didn't do that. I just had my vacations. I had a great time. I was in Wacken for 1 week. We talked about that off the air, and just having a great time up there on that festival. I was going with my bike around a lot, just having fun this summer vacations. My summer vacations are over, Dylan, and so, much like my summer vacations, the G1 Climax is also over, and we are here to discuss the participants, matches, and the general state of New Japan Pro Wrestling after this tournament.
That's right. I really missed doing the show. Missed all of the listeners, of course. Always the most important part of every one of our shows is all the listeners out there. Missed you as well, Strigga, although I saw all the cool stuff you were doing while I was watching all of this wrestling. So many tournaments going on at the same time. 3 different ones with the N1, the 5-star Grand Prix, covering it all on the Patreon. I did not go away. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you got plenty of Dylan in the last few weeks. So that is good. And now we're at the point where the good thing about this episode, the G1 final has historically been one of our biggest episodes of the year. I hope that is true this year. I have some skepticism based on the buzz of this tournament so far, but who knows? Like, maybe there will be unseen hype. We're recording this like pretty much right after the tournament ended. Like, it ended like 2 or 3 hours ago as well, yep. By the way. So
we're not waiting for the Monday press conference where everything leading up to King of Pro Wrestling will be announced. The Destruction in Kobe stuff, a Destruction tour. We don't know anything. We'll be speculating on stuff going forward until Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah. So that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I approve of that. Half the time when we try and wait for stuff, it happens, and then they don't actually announce that much sometimes. So
I have a fairly good grasp for when New Japan announces stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. So I actually much prefer this. Like, try to get get the quickest reaction we can, get our in the moment reactions, because who's to say what will happen when we see all of this play out, probably by the Dome, as it happens, when we see the final form of whatever this plan is that they have. We'll be able to judge it more accurately. But right now, we're in the moment. We just watched the show. We just watched the final. We've watched all of the matches. You said you watched the entire tournament. And if you know me, there was never any doubt. Every single match of the tournament was going down, and I was watching it and reviewing almost all of it on the Patreon, and we will fill those gaps in here. So everything's great in terms of being back. I'm so happy to be back on the Eastern Lariat. No lie. I really, really missed it genuinely.
Lies detected.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to get into all of this, because we, like I said, there's a lot to really... there's a lot of layers of this cake that has been baked, and we're going to go through all of them. We're going to see, was it an ice cream cake, or was it just all messed up? Was it just floppy? Did it fall apart? Like, do you got half the cake upside down and half the right side up? What kind of cake did they bake us, Strigga? That's what we're trying to figure out right now in this episode of the Eastern Lariat, and that's what we were needed to do. I don't know if anybody else could do it quite like we can. So I'm glad that we were chosen for this. We were chosen by the people out there, and we will deliver. We will deliver your cake.
Okay, we'll be making a cake. Okay, yeah. Is that what we're doing here? Live on the air.
We have to decide what kind of cake has already been baked. We are not baking.
I see. Okay,
it's a euphemism.
I see.
It's
okay.
not a real cake.
I would actually like a real cake, actually. But
what's your favorite kind of cake?
Cheesecake.
Okay. I mean, there's multiple kinds of cheesecake, but just the regular kind is very good to me.
Yeah. The regular kind is very good. You can have various toppings on the regular cheesecake.
Maybe like cookies and cream cheesecake, like Oreos.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, I'd like that. That sounds
your
pretty
favorite
tasty.
cake?
I'm really not a cake guy, to be honest with you. I'm not a big sweets fan or desserts fan in general. Like, the only thing I honestly prefer ice cream over cake. Even on my birthday, I've told people for years, like, don't give me a cake.
You can actually have ice cream on cake.
Yeah. I mean, they even make it. They even make it ice cream cakes, as I said. That's the best kind to me. But if I had to pick one, again, I would rather just have food. Like, give me something spicy. That's my MO. But if I had to pick a cake, I will give you an answer. I will not run from your question, Strigga. I have never backed down, and I'm not starting today. I would say perhaps red velvet cake would be where I would go.
Okay.
It's red, it's fluffy, it's cake.
The French
with chocolate icing. With chocolate icing and sprinkles.
Okay. The French, they have tart, Tarte, tart, and that's a cake that's not a sweet, but it's usually made with onions and stuff.
Well, I hate onions, so I mean that sounds awful.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not eating any of this French crap. Strigga. Like, so don't try and sell me on that. Don't try and sell the people on that on our first episode back. We didn't come here for onions, Strigga.
I love onions. Onions are great.
It doesn't even work for the analogy that I made either. How?
That's correct. I was just trying to sell you on something that's not sweets.
That's true. As I said, we need something spicy if you want to sell me on something.
All right. We'll get something spicy. We'll start with Block A.
The Block A had no flavor whatsoever. Like, there was no spiciness to Block A.
What was the spice of Block A? Let's look at Block A. I just went through the cage match ratings of each day, and of course, the first 2 days they had mixed block action, and those are some of the higher rated shows on that tour. There is a 7.69 rating for day 12 of the G1.
Yeah, that was the best show.
Yeah, Goto and Finlay and Kirkenhall.
And Takeshita and Phantasmo.
Takeshita and Phantasmo with an incredible match, yes. Except for that, there's a lot of middling ratings around 6 and 7.1, around that range we have. And the Block A shows are usually lower rated than the Block B shows. And that is something that we already expected going into this tournament when we saw the blocks unfold. And we'll now talk about the guys here in Block A, Dylan. First of all, we go from the bottom to the top, and we'll save the 2 finalists, Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji, for last.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll be starting with Callum Newman. Dylan, what was your impression of him until the final end of the tournament? Did he win you over?
Yeah, I really feel a little bit guilty about the early going, because I saw somebody make this post. I was following along with some of my followers on Twitter and stuff, and I saw them talking about him, and I really made a big mistake on the first episode where I said that I didn't want to be too hard on him because he was so young. But I actually realized, I saw someone say this. He's in the G1. He's been wrestling for years now. I think we could judge him fairly, like on anyone, even though he is young, yes. But that doesn't excuse being so bad at wrestling on such a big stage. And I was wrong to try and coddle him a little bit. That doesn't do good for anybody. But he was not. I mean, that's kind of the story of this whole tournament, actually. So you could say so and so. A lot of them will be, well, he's not ready for whatever or another, and he wasn't ready to be in the tournament. I think he proved that very clearly. And they really made a big mistake not putting someone else in his spot. Like, you had multiple options that would have been significant upgrades. And I don't even think he gained that much. Like, when it's all said and done, you did pull the upset early on. I guess you got some shock value out of that. But I don't really feel like I don't feel like he's significantly grown as a wrestler or even in their hierarchy. Especially when you have, I think it would have been better overall if it had just been Bolton as like the one young guy that had, that made the tournament. If you had a veteran in that role and Bolton was the spotlight, like young lion type of guy in the tournament, that would have only helped him. And I don't think Newman gained a lot from it. So he has a lot of time. That is true. But that doesn't justify. He should have been better. Like, he's at the tournament. Like you said, I remember you said something on the last episode where I was saying something. It's not so and so's fault, and you were like, "Yeah, but it still happened," and you were right then, and I'm right on this one. I just think ultimately he should not have been in the tournament, and that was a poor decision on their part in multiple ways, and I don't even think it helped him ultimately.
No, I agree with that. There were so many different guys that you could have put in. Just on the final show, we saw Mikey Nichols return to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we were so high on him last year when he had this incredible performances in the tournament.
Loved Mad Mikey last
year.
Yeah,
and man, imagine he would have been in Block A, would have been much better, actually. And Callum Newman, he's a guy, I mean, yes, he is young, but he is a guy who has wrestled more around 300 matches in his career already. He's been wrestling for 6 years, and he has been in New Japan for quite some time as well, to adapt to the style. And I'm think that even in spite of Callum Newman being in the tournament, that Oleg gained a lot more than him.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
He was able to stand out in his matches, whereas the matches that Callum had, those weren't really good matches. Even the one that's rated the best out of his matches on Cage Match is the one against Shingo Takagi that he won. I totally disliked the finish of that match. I thought it was very, very stupid. Yeah. And I just came away thinking that a lot of that around him and the booking of his tournament came away very unorganic. It felt like he was forced to gain points early on and then lose a lot. Nothing felt natural about the way that they booked this tournament around him, and he unfortunately couldn't really deliver on the part that they probably hoped for. I don't know if this. I agree with you. I don't think that it was a good decision to have him in.
I get what they were going for. It just didn't pay off. And like I said, I don't even think it helped him ultimately. If I were to pick one match of his that I would point to, I guess I agree with the inmates. I would probably say maybe the one versus Zack was probably his best showing, where he. And I always said, if you go back, we're going deep into Eastern Lariat lore here. Everybody knows, well, if you were listening back then, you would know that I was never a very big fan of Will Ospreay in New Japan. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Zack was his best opponent. He really brought a lot about him in pretty much all of their matches. And I think, Newman was able to channel that a lot. And I don't really harp on him being like an Ospreay cosplayer like that much, because it's kind of his gimmick at the moment, like that.
Yeah,
it's not good, but it's also the point of it, that's kind of his deal. He is his protege, so if there's anybody that's going to be a ripoff, he's probably is the one most entitled to it. It's just he didn't wrestle good. This is the problem ultimately, and he's got a long way to go. And again, ultimately, I don't think we can take away from his performance any much positives, but he is young. He has a lot of room to grow. So hopefully he does get there. So that is the one thing I will say in his defense. But I think definitely this is one of those where I think if you could go back and change it and put one of the other guys in, you mentioned Mikey Nichols. I mean, Yoshihashi was in the finals against him. I think would have been a significant upgrade. Ishii is the one I would point to. He's in AEW right now. I think A Block, if he were in there, that A Block would have looked a lot different if like Ishii was in there instead of Newman. I think we'd have a lot of different vibes coming off of it. But it is what it is. They took a swing at this and it was a miss. But yeah.
Part of the Ishii, part of the wonderful group, the conglomeration, right?
The conglomeration, yeah, that's like one of the best teams on AEW. I love the conglomeration.
The name, not so much, but the dudes are good.
I mean, come on, Briscoe, Mark Briscoe, and Ishii in the same group. Why wouldn't I love this?
Sure. Yes. What do you think? Between 1, very unlikely, and 5, highly likely, what are the chances of him returning to the tournament next year?
I would say, well, I think with this kind of scoring, we have to acknowledge that we don't know what the format will be next year. Will they go on? I mean, the tournament was well received. The play-in tournament was well received by fans. Will they bring it back? Will they try and move more blocks around to make things work? We just don't know. So we're really speculating on that. But I would say the fact that they put him in now, I think it's pretty strong he'll be back. Like, I would say 4.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. We'll see about the format. We'll talk about the format after we go through all the blocks. The one of the 2 guys actually, that Callum Newman got to beat, finished 9th in Block A, and that's Shota Umino. He had the same amount of points as Zanada, Jake Lee, and Gabe Kidd, but he lost to all 3 of them. So finishing 9th in Block A. What is there to say about Shota Umino's tournament? I mean, we just said about Callum Newman that he wasn't ready for the tournament. Can you say that about Shota Umino? And I am not sure about that, because I feel that, I mean, he came back from an injury, and in the first couple of matches, he really looked rough around the edges.
Yeah.
It's improved a bit throughout the tournament, but not really to the point that we all figured it would be. There's a guy in the cage match Discord that said that based on Dylan, on your and my predictions for the tournament, he also said that Shota Umino is going to win the tournament, and we figured that would be the case because
we were all wrong.
Yes, it would have made sense, but ever since he first stepped into the ring in this tournament, everything screamed that he's not in any way, shape, or form ready for contention to be in the final 2 or in the final 4 of this tournament. And when I'm looking at the matches that he had, the best one, he has actually a high rating again in the match against Gabe Kidd. There was a strong performance, but
yeah, that was one of the best matches.
It was Gabe Kidd.
You know? Yeah, we'll talk more about Kidd later. Yeah, but that was one of the best matches of the tournament to me.
Absolutely, yes. Shingo Takagi. In the match against Shingo Takagi, I thought that Shota Umino showed fire in some sequences, in some instances, but it was also Shingo Takagi guiding him to this match, I thought. And then there was the one against Zack Sabre Jr., and it's all these great performers that he had the good matches with, and with others, it just didn't really work out that well. So
I think that I think he's gotten a little bit of unfair hate, I have to say. Like
I'm not
said,
hating. I'm not hating.
No, not you. I'm saying in
I get that, and I saw that on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
I agree with that. There is unfair hate, and I'm trying to assess him fairly, but just what is missing, and that has been missing for almost his entire run that we have had this idea of the Reiwa Three Musketeers now, is just the fire that he just does not bring. He's just not able to bring the fire to create something in the ring that you really can attach to. Whenever he makes his entrances, people run up to him and want to high five him and want to be near him. But when he's inside the ring, it feels like that there's limitations to what he can really do inside the ring. And I don't know if he'll ever overcome these limitations, because if he does not, he will never be a top guy. And right now, when I'm looking at Shota Umino and when I'm looking at New Japan Pro Wrestling, he is not a top guy, and they are not positioning him in any way to be a top guy going forward, because when I'm looking at him right now, the most likely option for him at Wrestle Kingdom will be a match with El Fantasma once he turns against him.
Yeah, I mean it's just again, I think if you look at his tournament, it wasn't that bad. When you look at the quality of opponents he had, I thought him and Jake was one of Jake's better matches. To be honest
Yeah,
with you,
it was. That's right. Yeah.
I thought him and Naito was one of Naito's few not embarrassingly bad matches that he had. I think that Umino was not that bad, and I don't think he's significantly lower than any of the other people. I agree with you that or in terms of like his contemporaries that they're gunning
Mm-hmm.
for. I agree with you that he's not ready, but I don't think any of them are ready. I think this tournament proved that pretty much loud and clear. And that's why we're where we are with who won it ultimately. But he's not ready. I do agree with that. And you are also correct that they have not positioned him well. In all honesty, though, I cannot say that this was the whole tournament was a big problem. I would say because they didn't even try to elevate anybody by the end. It felt like, if it came down, you can say what you want about Umino, and I'm not saying this guy had a worse tournament than him, but what did we gain from Okan advancing to the semis? That, we couldn't have had Umino at least in contention on the last day.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
And that's where I just see the red flags with Umino, and I going into the tournament, I really figured they would have him in contention, but the fact that they positioned him like they did tells me that the ideas within the booking committee are different from what the idea of the fans going into this tournament was.
And that's fine. I mean, I think there's legitimate reasons to not think he's ready. Again, I agree with that. I just think the problem is though you need it. Even if they're not ready, you need it. It's like, and they didn't do it. They just said no.
Yeah. In comparison to him, I would say that Yota Tsuji, he's far more ready than Shota Umino. He's still not the guy. He's still not the guy that some of us picture him to be. But compared to Shota Umino, he's far more advanced.
I'd say all of them are flawed in different ways. But Umino might be. Like I said, I don't think any of them are ready. We'll
talk about Tsuji in a bit here. Yeah. What would they have to do with Umino now?
The one thing I think he definitely needs more than anything is he really needs to find himself, most of all. And it's a common complaint I've been making the last year of him. All of his stuff is basically ripped off from other people. And I get that they try to tell a story with Moxley, then try to tell a story with Ospreay with him. He really needs to come up with some really new stuff. And again, I would say all of this. I think the one thing Tsuji is definitely ahead of the other two on is in terms of presentation. Or the other three on is in terms of presentation. Because when Umino comes out, he looks like he's just, a guy, like a play wrestler almost. I saw all these cool wrestlers that I liked, and I want to put all of their stuff in my creator wrestler that I make. That's basically him. And I think he really needs to get rid of all this crap that he's on, revitalize himself, his look, get some new moves, get away from all of the Ospreay and Moxley moves. All of that stuff needs to go.
All the stuff needs to go. I think he needs to go. He needs to go on an excursion, onto an excursion where he doesn't meet Moxley or Will Ospreay. He has to go to Mexico, to Europe. Any of these places would be good for him to just be there for a couple of months, live in a different country once again on his own, and just figure out who he is going to be inside the wrestling ring in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Or even if, I think a great thing, honestly, what I would have done if this was your plan for him, if I'm Gato and I'm New Japan, if this was the best you could do for him, you should have sent him over to be in the N1 like Oiwa and let him wrestle new people, find his own stuff. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he's way ahead of all of these guys.
Yes.
We proved that. And that's the problem. You just bring up Tsuji or whatever. Yeah, that's cool and all. But then you compare him to, say, Anzai versus Rei Saito, and you see how not good they actually really are with what they need to be. Because nobody can compare to somebody like that. And Oiwa just had an amazing match versus Kaito that none of these others are capable of. Even though I think there's still some growing to do with Oiwa as well. Obviously, but
imagine where Oiwa can be once he finishes his growing. Once he's a complete wrestler, he will be the top of these guys.
And the hope is that he doesn't get stuck with some kind of gimmick when he comes back that derails him, and they have better creative plans.
That's been my fear for a lot of these guys in years past, but they kind of stopped doing that because when Tsuji came back, he did not get this kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
Yuya Uemura did not get a wizard gimmick or anything like that. The one guy that returned that got a gimmick is Ren Narita, and that's the House of Torture gimmick.
Yeah, they had, and he didn't even come back with that. He came back as So, yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. And hopefully you are right. And even with somebody like Okan, who was a gimmick basically up to this tournament, we saw him move away from a lot of the more, he was a lot more serious in this tournament, I would say, in there. So maybe you're right. Maybe they're trying to change away from all of that. But regardless, Umino, that's what I think. If this was the best you could do with him, why not just send him away for a little while? Put him in the other tournament to where he could at least be a player on the final day. I think that would have been a lot better. And I still don't think, with where they're at right now, with where the champion's at, with where everything's at, with where the company's at, he still should have been alive, in the final day. I don't think there's any reason he should be in 9th place in the block. It
was a stunner when he was eliminated. That really was a stunner.
Yeah, so early. And then, like I said, a lot of the match quality, this wasn't a good block, people. A block. There wasn't a lot of great talent in this block to have good matches with. And I don't know why he, got all of this blame for it. In my opinion, I thought he was kind of underrated in the tournament. And the match with Gabe Kidd, to me, that was a top 5 match that I remember from this tournament.
Yeah, Gabe Kidd really improved in the view of a lot of people. And Dylan, there's good and bad with this guy. He was on commentary for some of the tournament matches.
Yeah.
And he was just god awful.
I will say this. I can't remember what.
No, just this one show where he just forcefully laughed all the time was just so dreadful. Yeah, keep this guy away from commentary. He's bad at commentary.
He's just bad on the mic in general. If you took away his talking ability, he'd be a great wrestler. But his gimmick, he plays into it so much, and it's so grating and not in any kind of good way. But I will say he did have a funny line. I noted it in my notes when I was reviewing it. It was some Phantasmo match he was on commentary for, and they were all like, "Yeah, Phantasmo, he's so depressed lately." And then he was like, "Well, if my only friend was Giotto, I'd be sad too." On there, which was a very funny line.
He had some funny lines. That's true.
But he was mostly bad, especially on the big Takeshita matches where he was really going so. But the thing is, I said it before, and we saw it in the tournament. We saw in the tournament what I said had weight to it. If you could tone him down 20% of what he is, he would be a great performer. And when he did do that against them, and in the match versus Umino and Zack, he was one of the best guys in the whole tournament. And then you had some other styles where he leaned into some bad habits of his, and we saw them still not completely go away. But you're in that kind of catch-22 zone with him. I compared him to Dylan Brooks, the NBA player, on the last episode, where if you take that 20% away, yes, he would be better, but then he also wouldn't be him. And so he's trying to keep that going. And listen, let's just be honest with you. It's working. These fans are into him. He was getting more over than Naito in their match.
You know what's the benefit of the Japanese people is they don't have to listen to the guy on commentary.
Well, it's not just commentary; it's his whole gimmick. Even in his matches, that was the stuff I complained about in his earlier matches. That I hated his nonstop. He just had to say "fuck you," "fuck everybody" all the time, and it was just so annoying and just try hard. But when he just wrestles, he's so damn great.
Shingo Takagi, I think, was my favorite one out of
that was another good matches.
That he had. The Zack Sabre one was very good as well. It might be swinging between these two matches. Those were the two best I thought that he had. The one with Shingo was just an all-out war between these two. The Zack Sabre one was much different than that. He had a great tournament actually.
Yeah, I thought the Umino match that felt real, whereas the Shingo match, I felt like that was just like their first match. I felt like there was a little bit. It was still really good. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't think that it really captured me the way the Umino match did, where it felt like there was real heat between them, which there are a lot of rumors about that that there may very well be, and we've heard that for months, or I have anyway, and it's starting to get more traction, and I believe it, like based on how they wrestled. So good work there, and And the Zack match, like you said, very different style of match than the Shingo one and even the Umino one. So you see that this guy does have a lot to him deep down. And like I said, I still say the same thing, and I think he proved me right during a lot of his best performances. Even the early match, I'm not saying this was a great match, but the match against Evil, that had something pretty much no other Evil match had, and it was because of him. And that was just the tweak he needed to be more of lean into the babyface spot a little bit more. That tweaked him just enough to where he was as great as we all knew he could be. But there is still a little bit there. There's flashes of greatness, and then there's flashes of stuff that I think is not good. So we'll have to see which way he leans in. But overall, I think when you look at who gained the most of the tournament, he had to be one of the top players.
Absolutely, yes.
So I think we have to give him, an A+ effort when it came to the tournament. I think he gained the most, and again, they needed guys to gain from this tournament, and he was one of the few that I thought really grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it. So again, it wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be perfect. He was really great, and the fans are totally buying into him there. So good stuff from Kid. He really had a great tournament.
Didn't do it for Shiromino. I don't think we have to do it for Gabe Kidd. I think for both guys, they should be locks in the next year as well. And I also remember tweeting that the Evil match was one of the best Evil matches that I've seen in a long, long time. Gabe Kidd had. So yeah, great stuff there. And apparently, that's a thing that they build up throughout the tournament, is that he is now in a tag team with Jake Lee. And they are undefeated in 2-on-2 competitions so far in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they are probably going to face Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi for the tag team title next up. Yeah, and Jake Lee, he didn't bring a lot, Dylan.
He's another one that got a lot of hate early on in the tournament, and I think a lot more justifiably so than Umino. I think he got better as time went along, but he himself is kind of a microcosm of this whole tournament. And I mean, I get it. If you're a fan of the winner, yes, that's a totally different thing. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, what was the point of this tournament ultimately? Who gained that much? I mean, you're really grasping, and I think with him, if you're looking for positives, you got to dig for them. They're not obvious. And on top of it, he didn't even beat Naito, which was his whole storyline heading into the tournament.
In hindsight, I thought we should have seen that coming after the disastrous draw that the All Together show in
I said that
title had.
Yes.
Yeah, we should have seen that coming. But I thought that.
Okay, but here's the problem.
So
here's the problem with that. Okay, so you are okay. I agree with that. People were too soft on that show. That was a terrible black mark on both of them.
Yeah,
but what's the point of bringing him in the tournament at all? Then?
Exactly. Yeah. There's really no point of him being in there. And he was the one that eliminated Shiromino in the end. That's the one thing that he got here.
And where does he go? Where's his spot on this roster?
He is now slotted as a tag team wrestler, apparently. Yes.
Why? That could have been anybody else.
I mean, I'm thinking that midway throughout this tournament, they figured, okay, that's not working. This is not working. We have to move him on to something else.
His match with Kid it wasn't a great match, but it was a lot of fun. Coming out with that. I think that's the first show he came out with the beers on there.
The highball.
Yeah. But yeah, they brought, the crowd was into him. Those Corkin shows, that's where the whole tournament turned around, in my opinion. If you're just gonna grade this whole tournament, the first 9 shows were so boring and bad, in my opinion. I hated this tournament.
Leave out the first 2, but
I didn't even think those were that great. I thought they were way.
Good. Yeah, they were good, but definitely this stretch, the first half. Yeah, there was not a lot of good to hang on to.
Yeah, like I said, I think if you grade this by G1 standards, the first 9 shows were all like toss them. There's nothing special on the first 2 nights, in my opinion. I wonder how many people would go back to those matches when you compare them to the Korakuen matches and the Nagoya matches that the crowds were like super hot for. And we'll talk more about that, who got them to that point, because I do think there was a performer that really ignited the tournament midway through. Well, and multiple ones did, to be fair, but one in particular I think did, and it was not Jake Lee. I will
It was not Jake Lee, no.
Yeah, but his tournament was very poor, and more than that, it's just utterly baffling what the point of this is. like why is he here?
Yeah.
What did he add that Yoshihashi
he doesn't exactly. He does not have a style that is in any way, shape, or form favorable to the New Japan in-house style. He is stalling incredibly often and just doesn't bring a lot of wrestling that you would really think that a New Japan crowd wants to see. Apparently, he's a good talker. That's what we said on the last show that we did, but
yeah,
that didn't bring him anywhere to a bigger position anyways. So
we're in the same problem he's had for so many years.
Yeah.
This is a character. Like, this is, that he's playing. Like, I felt that way ever since Total Eclipse. Into Noah, why can't we just have the normal Jake? Like, that wrestled. Like, why can't he just be himself? Why does he have to be this, like, I don't care about anything guy? Like, why does he need highball?
He's a liar, Dylan. He's a liar. He told us that before the tournament, and that's something that was brought up on English commentary sometimes. That overall, it was also aborted midway through the tournament. That
yes,
he's this cheating, lying dude.
I totally agree with what you said. Things changed like quickly into the tournament. Like, they realized that this was not getting what they wanted out of it. And now they've kind of backed themselves in this corner because to me, tag team with Jake is not the best use of Game Kid going forward either.
No, and he's still the what's the title? The strong openweight champion.
Yeah, I mean that might as well be a you might as well have gotten that out of a Cracker Jack box. Like, it's not a real title. Like, at this point, it's the worst title on a company with 27 titles, pretty much. But
they are still the strong tag team titles.
That's true as well. Like, all of the strong titles, they kind of just blend together. They're all equally unimportant, I would argue. But yeah, like, this just isn't the best use of Kid to stick him with Jake. I guess they kind of have like a dynamic I could see getting over, like the crazy guy and the guy who doesn't do anything, like the stoic guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dynamic, at least.
It's a dynamic. And they are surely becoming tag team champions. 100% sure.
It doesn't matter. Like, the tag belts are also just a step above the strong belts. And all. I mean, one of them wasn't even in the tournament.
Yep.
So like, who cares if they're the tag champions? Like, that doesn't do anything for Kid. Like, teaming with Jake is the wrong move. I don't understand it. I don't understand what the point of him in this company is and what their plans are going forward. I don't even think they know, but I think that's about all we can say about that. But the tournament, it got better as it went along.
Do you think they are biting themselves in the ass that they didn't just bring him in as a guest from Pro Wrestling Noah and ship him away again? Because now they are stuck with him, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think he's a bad wrestler. I think he has and is stuck with bad ideas constantly.
Mm-hmm. But that's been going on for 5 years now.
Exactly. Like that's the problem. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. That somebody. I personally think that some like people in New Japan spoke up for him. They wanted him there. Like people like Tanahashi.
Yes, sure.
Like, we know that. Like, we already know that. But, it is what it is. But in terms of a tournament, it was far from the, it wasn't the blow away debut I think anybody wanted out of him.
Oh. Well, Sanada. I think that Sanada also is a very, very much a reflection of how this tournament went. Because the first half of Sanada's matches, you can completely forget them. It slowly started turning around a bit when he faced Naito. He had a good one with Shota Umino. And then he had this really cool match with Shingo Takagi. And the one with Zack Sabre Jr. So in the end, his run was pretty good, but the first half is really completely forgettable.
To me, I thought he was one of the best guys in A Block, honestly. And that's a reflection of A Block more than him.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like, to me, the security blanket of A Block. Even against the guys who kind of struggled, he always got him to at least acceptable matches for the most part. And where
would you rank him amongst the best in Block A?
I would put him below Zack and Shingo. And Kid.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Those were the three but I think he was above the others in terms of wrestling.
I would put him above Okan.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, that match with Shingo was a great match. Like a great main event. That felt like it was so cool that they were able, and it drew a big number too. Like their show where they were the main event, their first ever singles match, which was really cool. That was like the most fiery I think Sonata's ever been in his whole career. Because make no mistake, he's still a bland and emotionless guy. like he is not going to be a fiery babyface. But in terms of his wrestling, I think he's really improved like this year, and this tournament really solidified that to me. I thought he was really underrated by some people. You know, you look at his run, I thought he was one of the better guys in A Block. Even the match with,
there is no question that this guy is a very competent pro wrestler.
Which he wasn't. He used to not be. He used to be the botch king, like 5.
He used to be the botch king. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But right now, there's no question that he's a competent pro wrestler.
I think he's a lot better now than he was a year ago. In my opinion.
Yes. The thing though is with him, where is he supposed to go? I mean, he had his title run. Yeah, exactly. He had his title run. They quickly positioned him back to where he used to be. For a couple of months, it seemed like he had actually gained something from the title run where he faced Naito again and then helped Naito out against the House of Torture. It seemed like he had gained positioning, but in this tournament he is back where he always used to be in this tournament, 8 points.
Well, the problem is that he got hurt like pretty quickly after that. Then you had the second Naito match.
I give you that. Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I thought he had the match with Yoshihashi in the New Japan Cup, which was a really strong match, and then he got hurt. And he was already hurt going into the tournament, but he got his way through and then got more hurt, pretty much. I thought he came back with a really strong match versus Finlay. And in this tournament, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, again, if you compare it to where you want this tournament to be, where the tournament should be, then it's not like he had all of these match of the year bangers. But I mean, the match versus Shingo, the match versus Zack, those were two of the better matches in A Block, I would say. And in general, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say he had this unbelievable tournament that rocked my world, but he was kind of the security blanket of A Block, to where he was always reliable. Like he always worked at his level, and when he was put in big spots, he delivered like pretty much every time. Again, him versus Naito was one of the better one of the only good Naito matches, I would say. So I think
probably Naito's best one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
We'd have to look at the others that Naito had, but we'll talk about Naito later.
Yeah, we'll talk about Naito later. But yeah, I think now at best, at worst, it was one of his best matches. So that's where I'm coming from. Again, even against bad guys, I thought he kept things afloat. And when he got to face people that are actually talented, he did a great job.
Yeah. With Jake Lee and Sanada. Sanada should be safe next year. I don't see them giving him the boots for the tournament. But Jake Lee, Dylan, what do you think between 1 and 5?
I hate to kind of jump on your bit here, but I think nearly all of these people are safe for next year.
I think so too. Yeah.
But Jake is the one where you can at least.
Is there one to be quicker here with these assessments? Is there anyone from A you think he'll be out next year?
I think Jake would be the one I would point to be honest. I don't think it's impossible Naito doesn't make it next year. With not because of his star power, but because of his body just can't handle it. Like ultimately,
just getting match by match, it's getting more and more obvious. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And you might just talk about him right now because he finished 5th in the block. Tetsuya Naito with 10 points. They gave him this losing streak early on, where it was, he didn't even get through to the tournament, to the second round of the tournament, and that is something that really few of us considered that it would actually happen. But then I remembered their Best of the Super Junior booking, where they did the same with Hiromu Takahashi, who also did not finish up in the top 4. They had a very similar idea for Tetsuya Naito, who was able to string together a series of wins, but overall just did not make it to the final stages as the world heavyweight champion. And they tried to present this as part of a story where Tetsuya Naito is slowly falling apart, but that's actually not a story. It is actually what is happening with the guy. And I'm just looking at the matches that he had. The Shingo Takagi one, the first day of the tournament, was probably his peak wrestling-wise. Then the Zanata match that I said, and the one with Great Okan, I thought was very good because of the layout of the match, where for most spectators, it was so obvious that Tetsuya Naito would be going through, but they had this nice wrinkle that Great Okan was on a winning streak. He lost his first 4 matches and then won all of his remaining matches to finish before Tetsuya Naito, ahead of Tetsuya Naito. And that made the match work for me in a way that I wouldn't have thought they would be able to present this match. So I want to give them props for presenting this match in a way that it was really, really exciting, which it really was not just on paper. So those were the matches that I would watch out for Tetsuya Naito. The middle of the tournament for him was really god-awful with Jake Lee. The match with Evil was bad. The match with Gabe Kidd I really didn't like either. With Naito, it's going to be interesting where he stands as champion with Zack Sabre winning and calling a shot at King of Pro Wrestling. There's various outs for him. They could take the title off him at King of Pro Wrestling. They could have him defend the title multiple times until Wrestle Kingdom, now that they are apparently going away from the certificates/briefcase stuff. By the way, yes, the briefcase is just a metaphor. I know that they went away from the briefcase, but they still had the certificate of the challenger in the last couple of years. So keep that as a metaphor. So Naito could lose the title. Naito could move on with the title until Wrestle Kingdom. It all depends on what the idea for Wrestle Kingdom is. But now with Hiromu Takahashi advancing to a position that we wanted him to be in 5 years ago, the possibilities are there for finally having this Naito and Hiromu Takahashi match at Wrestle Kingdom without the title on the line. Because, like you said, he's breaking down, and who knows for how much longer we can have these singles matches with him in a big position.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's going to face Hiromu at the Dome. That's kind of the one card they haven't cashed in yet on him.
Exactly, and that's a big match, and they need a big match on that show. They need multiple big matches on the show.
Yeah, they don't have them, so they've got one, and they're probably going to do it at the Dome. And the only question is, will it be for the title or not?
Yep.
That's where I feel like with him right now. But as a wrestler, I mean, he was dreadful. I thought he was awful this tournament. One of the worst performers in the tournament. I have no joy watching this man wrestle at all. And I mean, it hurts me more watching Kenta nowadays because he used to be one of my favorites. Naito, I mean, I could see that he's had a lot of great matches, but I was never the LIJ fan guy. I never thought they were as great as other people did. But he had a lot of great matches and did a lot of great things and he's basically, listen, on that show, even the final show, he got one of the biggest reactions. Like after he was eliminated to the tournament, like the crowd still recognized him as the guy, even though this tournament seemed to try to ruin that ideology of him as much as they can. This tournament was so poorly booked, up and down, it's insane. I would say. Like, what? There's so many people that I could say, what were they thinking with him? And this is another one. I mean, even if he's breaking down, which we all can see, why would you do this to your world champion? Like, it makes no sense.
He loses the title to Jon Moxley, wins it back in a god-awful match, and then goes onto a losing streak?
Yeah.
What the hell?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. There's no defending this booking. And it's yet another, and unfortunately for him. And again, I'm telling you right now, I don't like him as a wrestler. I don't want to watch him at all. That's me personally. But I can at least have some sort of vision and foresight to say, yet another title reign for Naito that is just going down the tubes. Like, can this man not just have one good title reign?
No, he cannot, because this Naito has always been the chase guy, and with every title run they are giving him, it's becoming more and more obvious that he is not the dude to hold onto the title for a long time. And even the booking tells you that.
Yeah, because of them. Like, more than the fans don't feel that way. Now, you said they've never turned on Naito or made it feel like he wasn't the top star. Even that second match, how lame was it when they announced the rematch with Sonata? And yes, the angle was good at the end, but come on. And that show did a really good number. Like with him, he can get things. The show with Tsuji in April, that did a really great number. It's because of him. like that's why this is their star. This is their one guy who's actually a star in Japan, and they do this, and it's mind-boggling, like totally mind-boggling. But I can't say, like I said, if you just look at me personally as a fan, analyst hat off, fan hat on, I have no qualms with him losing it to everyone because I just thought his tournament was very poor.
And that realistically should be his role in the next coming years.
Yeah.
In this tournament, and generally against all these guys that could be on the up and coming.
Okay, here's another issue.
He should lose to these.
Let me ask you this though. So we just talked about it. He lost to so many people. Is beating him that big of a deal?
Apparently not. Yeah.
And that's that's another problem right there. That's why you don't do this. Like, even if you don't think that he's there, beating him should be this, like, that should be a star-making moment for someone. And if they do it in England, and I mean, again,
they will not do it in England. Zack Sabre Jr. called his shot for King of Pro Wrestling. That's the week before Royal Quest.
Oh, well, even still, if they do it then, you just have to question, why could this event, like, if they look back a year from now, they say, oh, none of these guys are where we want them. None of these guys are stars, these young guys. Who do they have to blame for that when this is their idea? These are their ideas, multiple, like, for the tournament.
So now that Zack called his shot for King of Pro Wrestling on October 14, Zack beat Naito twice in the tournament. That is a clear signal for me that he will not be winning the title.
He didn't beat Naito. Did he beat Naito twice?
I know. He beat Naito and he won the tournament. That's what I was.
Yeah. By winning the tournament, they jobbed this man out so much he loses matches he's not even in right now.
No, I'm just looking at the guys that he lost to, and Zack Sabre is obviously one of them. He's calling his shot now at King of Pro Wrestling. Then we have Shingo Takagi, and I'm not sure if he will even claim a title shot. That might be the same situation as with Tomohiro Ishii against Okada a couple of years ago.
His well-deserved title shot he never got.
Yeah, he never got. Then we have, of course, Evil and Great Okan. Okan already called his title shot. He could be the one after Zack Sabre Jr. if Zack doesn't win the title. And I'm leaning towards that Naito remains champion. We'll talk about that in the end. The general layout of the tournament.
Yeah.
So he will probably move on to still be champion. And I could see them booking title matches against Okan and Evil leading up to Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what they're going to do based on this tournament. Like, can you really say there's anything we can say for sure about New Japan right now?
That's definitely correct. But
yeah, I'll say, like I said, I mean, I could see him losing to Zack for sure. Again, we're kind of jumping ahead, but
I mean, I can see that, but I'm leaning more towards that he defends.
Yeah, me too. I agree with you.
When we talk about the tournament generally, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
But yeah, it's rough with the Naito as champion. But who else would it be right now?
Yeah, exactly. Like that, they just should have gotten here in a much better way than how they did it.
Yeah. Shingo Takagi, Dylan. What can you say about Shingo Takagi?
He's great. Like we all know it. Yeah, like the thing is though, he's another one. I think, did he really gain anything from being in the second round? Is he really in any better spot now than he was before the tournament?
I wouldn't have thought that he actually makes it until that stage. I would have thought I don't know what I actually picked. I can't tell you right now, but I think I had him slotted between 8 and 10 points, but not making it through to the next stage.
Right.
He didn't gain anything. He's just one of the most solid hands that they have.
Yeah.
In this block he is the Tomohiro Ishii while Ishii is not there.
Yeah, that's the problem. like if he were there, that might change his whole. I think remember the point I made at the start of the tournament. It's not just about Ishii being in the tournament. It's about how much other people can gain from wrestling him in major matches. And they didn't have that guy to have like these incredible matches with overall. So yeah, Shingo did a great job. He was one of the best guys in A Block. I don't know where he goes from here. I feel like he's still in the same role that he was going into it, but it was nice to see him get a good push like into the Final Four. It was a nice little, that feels like his gold watch, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he beat Great Okan, would be King of Pro Wrestling title shot. He beat Evil. He beat Jake Lee. That's fine.
Yeah, I just don't think he gained that much.
He actually beat Great Okan twice.
Yeah, there you go. But Shingo's great. Again, if they wanted to push him, I'm all for it. Like if it was up to me, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Going in there, I think he's going to be a guy. I could definitely see him in the mix for one of the secondary titles around Wrestle Kingdom.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. You don't really have any better options. So why not?
No. Yeah, and that Zack Sabre will leave out here for Block A. But like we said before, talking about the individual guys, not a good block. They really have to get back to the drawing board to balance these blocks out better.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Which then brings us to Block B.
We didn't really talk about Okan, to be honest with you.
Sorry. Yes, we did not really talk about it. We kind of talked about him, but not really in
or Evil.
Or Evil. And these two...
He sucked.
These two might as well not be individual cases, but these two are tropes of this tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is incredible how after almost more than 10 years of ghetto booking in this block system of the G1 Climax, people get still worked by the guy winning 5 in a row and by the other guy losing 4 in a row. And it still works out. There were lots of people assuming that Evil would make it to the next stage after winning these first 5 matches when it was so glaringly obvious that he would lose all of them.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Great Okan is the exact opposite of that. He lost early on, but Great Okan in losing the first matches, I really thought that he was good in these matches.
Yeah.
He was not outstanding, but Great Okan played his part well. So I said these might not be individual cases. Backing away from that, Evil might not be an individual case, but Okan is much more of an individual case, because when he went on to finally win something, you could see that there was a flip switched with him in this tournament, in the middle of the tournament. He suddenly was much more vicious and developed this new finishing move that was a mix of the Sheep Killer and the Eliminator. That looked great. And that's what I said about the Naito match earlier, that that they positioned him so strongly that you could think, okay, yeah, maybe the guy, the dark horse, is winning the match with Naito. But then again, no, Naito is not losing that match. That was a great intrigue for the match. So while he probably didn't gain a lot for him individually as a performer on the New Japan cards, he was a great utility player for this tournament, and they used him I think, to the maximum of his potential.
I think that's a great, like, your synopsis of his tournament was really good, to be honest. Like, I think that totally accurately describes his tournament. I was thinking about it. I wonder if they, in hindsight, they wish Naito was on that semifinal show. Like that their great plan came together for that. I think that might have been a smarter move than what they did. But Okan, Evil, there's nothing to say about him. It's the same stuff, like every match. Like, just as I predicted when people were trying to tell me otherwise early on. We now know that it's still the same as always. Okan, I thought he really wrestled the best work of his New Japan career in this tournament. That said, I kind of go back to what I said earlier. Like, you look at him, and he wrestled pretty good in the tournament. I wouldn't say great. I wouldn't say bad at all. I thought much better than usual. But I just look at him. When he beat Naito and had the promo at the end, I just thought, this guy's not a main eventer. Like, what are they doing? Like, that was my immediate thought. Like, there's no way this man is a main eventer. And, like, with how he is now. A good hand? Yes, I agree with that. I think he's proven that he can do that, which is more than where he was at. I think he definitely gained. He's one of the guys that gained something from this tournament. But why? like, what's the end game with him? What could it possibly be at this point?
Yeah. He gained something from his tournament because he was so low.
Exactly.
He was so low, not as a performer, but he was. Remember when Okada had one of his final appearances, and Okada was trying to do something, and Okada just walked past him, and that's what Okada is. He's a joke.
This man was eating during his match like a month before this tournament.
Yeah.
Like, had a match where he ate stuff in the match.
Going to our listeners who responded to our tweet, Dylan. Ash, for example, said Okan surprised me the most with how much he improved. Great tournament for him, performance and result-wise. Yeah. Eric said he was most surprised about Gabe Kidd, Finlay, and Okan. And also Jimbo Tsuruda. That's a great name.
It is.
He says that Okan is one of his favorites amongst Oleg, Goto, Zack Sabre Jr., Yuya, Uemura, and Takeshita. So Philly Leotardo also mentions the GOG as one of his favorites. So he really improved in the eyes of a lot of spectators, but that's just because he was where he was before this tournament.
Yeah, and we actually saw him grow. We actually saw that they had a plan with him, unlike some of these other guys.
That's one of the most fun parts of this tournament, where you see a guy that you really don't expect to do anything in the tournament, suddenly perform on a level that you don't expect, and suddenly make it to a level that you wouldn't have thought would be possible. That's the great part of these tournaments.
And it felt like a really nice moment when he beat Naito. Like you said, the underdog coming through in the end. It was cool. I'm really skeptical about his future prospects as any kind of star player, but in terms of his wrestling, he at least proved he can be in that. Like, if he's in a similar role to Shingo, then this tournament was a success for him. Like, his push was, because that's way above eating during his matches.
Yeah. So that's we talked about Evil.
Yeah.
He's a trope. That's all you can say about him. Yeah. Really, there's nothing more to add. Block B.
Yeah.
Block B, Dylan, was much more well received than Block A, and the final standings had El Fantasmo at the bottom of the block, Dylan.
The thing about him is, like, yes, he was at the bottom of the block, but they at least told a consistent story with him, which is more than a lot of the guys that we just talked about at A block, I would say. We'll see where it goes. We have a good idea of where it's going to go, but at least they had a plan for him. And here's the thing about him. Like, pretty much every tournament he's in, he's a guy that's good for that one big match. Every tournament where it's like, whoa, like, this was one of the best matches of the tournament. I would go back to the Best of Super Juniors run he had, where he faced Robbie Eagles, and they had the match of the tournament that year. I think it was 2021. But he like stole the show after being like nothing special throughout most of it. Like you could see when he gets locked in, and he really usually does it about once, maybe twice, like a year. It feels like when he gets locked in, he delivers big pretty much every tournament he's in. The rest of the tournament, and this, I praised them for having an idea for him. I criticized them because I didn't like the idea nor the execution of it.
No,
Yeah.
Especially the angle that they ran on the final show with the House of Torture and with Evil and with him not breaking up the pinfall. That's just I said that on Twitter. It's just the most dirt awful sports entertainment bullshit, and I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, again, your hypnosis of that on point once again, because I totally agree with that. And
I don't think he would have finished last hadn't Yuya Uemura been injured, because that's when Oleg picked up his final points.
Yeah.
No, Oleg would have had 6, then he would have finished at the bottom. But it worked out for them because El Phantasmo in the storyline is at the bottom because he doesn't have any friends except for Gedo, which like Kid pointed out. So Yano, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes.
This is so which got pointed out so well by Get Kid on commentary.
And Phantasmo still would have been at the bottom because Bolton beat Phantasmo.
Well, that's right. But Bolton would have had the 2 points from Uemura, you know that.
Would they have been tied if he didn't have him?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's just Phantasmo still at the bottom. No matter what.
Yeah, well, the prospects of him that's pretty clear. He is going to turn to the House of Torture. That I think that's pretty obvious, given the way that they book all the stuff, and it's just in your face, very clear booking. This one on the final day of G1 Climax was too obvious to make the turn, but I can see that. I said it in the Cage Match Discord. I can see Shota Umino living through World Tag League and his trauma once again. Whereas last year Ren Rita turned against him, and this year I can see El Phantasmo turning against Shota Umino in World Tag League to set up the Wrestle Kingdom match between the two.
At least that would be a story. I mean,
it would be a story.
It's bad, but at least it's a story. But I mean, that match. Listen, you can't talk about Phantasmo without talking about that match against Takeshita. That was one of the best of the tournament. And that's one of his best matches, period. I would say on there. I mean, when he gets in that zone for that one big match, he delivers. It's just a fact. And he did it again this year. So, again, you didn't really see anybody in A Block have that level of match. So, that is one thing he can hang. But I really agree with everything you said about him otherwise.
What a phenomenon that match was, really. Like,
yeah.
In the middle of this card, El Phantasmo and Konosuke Takeshita just decide to go all out and have this incredible banger. In the match, for the most part, it looked like that El Phantasmo was really able to get the surprise win over Takeshita, and Kirken Hall was rooting for him so loudly. And everybody was so disappointed when Takeshita in the end pulled off the victory against Phantasmo. We have it at 9.09. It's probably the best match of the tournament, right?
It was up there. I liked the Takeshita and Goto match from the night before.
Oh yeah. That was.
Yeah, but it's up there. It's up there though. I also thought Kid and Zack was another one up there. But we'll talk about the matches at the end. But like the Phantasmo and Takeshita for sure. If you said it was the best match of the tournament, I don't think I'd have a strong argument against you. I just preferred the other one overall. So really strong match for sure. And he's a guy. Again, I'm not usually the biggest fan of his work. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I am. But I will say the thing about him is you cannot say he doesn't try. You know, he's another guy that when he's a babyface, again, he's another one that I find he tries so hard to the point of cartoonishness, in my opinion, sometimes, of whether he's a heel or babyface, where he was like, when he was a heel, he was such a heel, scratching the back and doing the flip into the back rake and all that stuff. And then as a babyface, he was the dude. Like everything about him was babyface all the way. Like he tried so hard with that, and he really puts his heart into it. Maybe a little too much. And if he this turn ends up playing out how we think it is, you get ready because I don't think I'm gonna like. And again, I'm not even his biggest fan now, but I really am not going to be a big fan if he goes back to his heel stuff he was doing before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can get behind the guy. You say he tries hard a lot of times, but in a way, he's very sympathetic in trying so hard, and that's he almost comes across like an overachiever. And he went from being a junior heavyweight into being a heavyweight into a position that you wouldn't really necessarily have thought years ago that he would be a guy for a G1 Climax, but here he is.
Yeah,
and
good point.
Performance-wise, I mean, I had fun watching him against guys like Hinari, Yota Tsuji, Oleg Boltin, Jeff Cobb. Those matches were just not outstanding in any way or shape or form, but just good stuff in the mid-card. And then, like I said, this exception of the rule of the mid-card matches in the G1 with Takeshita.
I would say, like,
he is a guy that I would bring back actually next year.
Yeah, and it seems like they had a plan for him, which is more than you could say for a lot of these other guys. But I would say he's probably one of the ones if they were going to put people on the bubble. I mean, the thing is, in B block, you compare him to the rest of the block, and I think he doesn't stand out against like most of the block, unfortunately. If you compare him against A block, like he looks a lot better, like at the end of the day. But again, a lot of that, if they had swapped Phantasmo and Umino, and Umino got to wrestle Takeshita and Goto and these guys, like, would we be talking about his tournament a lot different? You know, and you can say that about like a lot of guys in A block. If they swapped out with Phantasmo's spot, where would they be? You know, like how much different would we think of their tournament?
Oh yeah, very differently actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Would you bring him back?
I think there's others I would want in ahead of him, but I personally think they will. Like I said, they have a plan for him. I just won't like it, probably.
Let's go, before we go to Yuya, let's go to Oleg Boltin first. What was your impression of him?
Love him. Like one of my favorite guys in the tournament, like to watch. I thought he was one of the best performers. Like now he doesn't have the match catalog that the top guys do in the block, but if you look at his role and what he was asked to do, he was exceptional. Like being the opening match guy in the tournament. Obviously, they had the tag matches. You know, but really, yes, we all ignore those. But being the opening guy of B block every night, you compare him to Newman. I mean, worlds apart. I would say like this guy's got everything you want. He's got a great look. I love the new attire he's got on. The theme music is really good. He wrestles a very unique style.
Even compared to Callum Newman's look.
Oh yeah.
Oleg Boltin is just way ahead of him. Leagues better than him.
Absolutely. And I just think he did a fantastic job in his role. Like he's another one. If you were asking me who had the best tournaments in terms of what did they gain, I think he was right near the top of the list. Like I thought he totally gained a lot. You know, it's unfortunate about Yuya's injury, but for him to get that points total, I mean, that only helps him at the end because he got more points than I think a lot of people thought. I thought I was going, you know, against the grain when I had him get to 4, like, and they doubled that in this tournament here. So I mean,
much like I said, but they doubled it by accident because of Yuya.
Even getting to 6, even getting 3 wins for him.
6 is great. Yes.
Yeah. Like that's a great tournament, and he gained a lot, and he deserved it. He deserved it because he wrestled so good. The crowd loves him. They always pop for his style. I loved the spot in the Cobb match where they kind of went back and forth with the Karelin lifts. And then he showed up Cobb, like he's like, no, let me show you how to do this Karelin lift twister thing here. And the crowd loved it. Boltin is the dude. I love this guy. I hope he gets a great run.
Very different to El Fantasmo, but in a way similar. They had an idea for him. And the idea was he was the opening guy on every tournament night. And he gets a match that's between 8 and 12 minutes long. He is the power dude, and everybody else has to work around the power that he brings. Perfect.
Exactly. I think in general, B Block had not only was the wrestling better and the wrestlers in general just a lot better, but they actually tried to have stories for guys. Whether it was him, Tsuji, Uemura in the early goings, Goto, Takeshita, all of these guys had stories like in this B block. And in A block, we're like we covered it already. We were struggling and grasping at straws with some of these guys. So I think that tells you that a lot more care. I wonder if the same person booked A and B block, like in the intermingling, if there was a different voice involved, because they were so different. Yeah, they were so different from each other.
Yeah. Yuya Uemura.
Oh yeah, Uemura. Okay, so he's another one. As I said, all of the young guys, they're not ready for different reasons. I think he, of everyone, is the best in-ring guy. Like of the four young guys, like the Three Musketeers plus him. I think he's the best nuts and bolts worker. The problem with him is, and the reason why I don't think he's anywhere close to ready or being a top star or anything like that, you know what he reminds me of right now? Narita before they turned him.
Yeah.
Where he's got this.
That's a great call.
Yeah, like he comes out, he's a very good wrestler, just like Narita was. He comes out with this generic music. He comes out with this really basic gear. The look, there's nothing special about him. He's just a guy, like with how he presents himself. He's another one where if I were like booking in New Japan or I was somebody in Power, I would really go into overdrive and look. Like, you've got this heat storm thing. It gives you a color scheme. Like, that's literally all that is. It gives you a color scheme. Let's make this better. Like, let's really go all out. Get you some new gear, something really cool, main event type of gear, new music, new hair. Everything is changed. Get a new move. I mean, his moveset is proficient and good. Don't get me wrong. But
I like the idea that he is the guy that is the closest still to the Young Lions, where he just does the foundations just very well. What I love about him especially is his arm drag right into the dropkick. I don't think there is any guy in the world that does this kind of sequence better than Yuya Uemura does.
And I mean, it's obvious he's trying to channel like an old school wrestler, ultimately.
Exactly.
Like an old school 80s style babyface in his work, which I think is very noble. Like, I'm not hating on that at all. I just think you need a little bit more in this day and age. Again, his wrestling is good. And what you said is so right about the fundamentals that he's got going on. I just want to see something, a bigger move, some new music, some flash to get the fans into him, because he's really bland, like, at the end of the day, but a very talented wrestler, clearly. And it's obvious that this tournament, he's another one that I think unquestionably, even though I don't think he's somebody I would want to be putting in the Dome main event right now.
Yes.
I think he gained in this tournament because where he was at before, much like Okan, I mean, people were hating on this guy, like before this.
Remember the Haver's hair match against Tsuji?
Everyone hated that.
And everything that happened with him afterwards was telling you, okay, this is not a guy that we'll have in the main event position because he's just another dude on our roster.
Yeah, exactly. And they started him off strong. He's another one that, like, people really bought into him, like, early on, like, like he won his first 3 matches, like, get ready, he's on this big run, and then he lost a bunch in a row there. And unfortunately, the injury happened, and who's to say what would have happened if that hadn't have happened?
I thought that they would have gotten into problems because he beat Tsuji before getting injured, and I thought that would completely derail everything, but it happened. It's worked out well for them in the end, and I'm gonna say something about the tournament layout in the end. For you, Amor, I want to get onto your point that you said he's not going to headline Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
Within this tournament, of course, we have 19 days of the G1 Climax, and during this part of the year, it is mostly about the wrestling. And Yuya Uemura is very good at the wrestling.
Right.
So people were able to hang on to him as a guy, as a performer, because they were watching him night in, night out. When we get back to the regular touring, I think he will once again drop off of everybody's radar, because we get to the touring schedule and we get to building up high-profile matches. And that's where he just lacks. He's just not very interesting as a character. And that's where he ultimately, where what you said about him is true. He is probably better than Umino, Tsuji, and the others at the wrestling part, but you will need someone who can become a big star in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's just not him. He's very competent. Yeah. He's much like we said about a lot of people on this roster. He is a good hand. He will always be reliable, but he will never be main event level talent, I don't think.
If you could implant his wrestling ability into Tsuji, you would have the guy. Like with the look and the way he carries himself, like you would have the next star. But unfortunately, they're split into two people. And that's where we're at right now. But yeah, I think he gained a lot. I think and remember, he's another one where he was doing a lot of goofy King of Pro Wrestling stuff. Like maybe they were trying to get something out of him by doing that stuff.
Maybe. Yeah.
Which it didn't work. I mean, if he goes back to that, then this tournament meant nothing. Ultimately, you have to hope that they have something planned for him. And I'm with you. I really agree with you, but they have to try. They have to try with someone to do something, like going forward. It can't just be undercard guy, like with all of their young guys. They have to try something, and I don't know what that is, especially for him. But I hope he doesn't fall back into the King of Pro Wrestling stuff. If we can avoid that, then I think I'll be happy, at least.
Mm-hmm. Who did he beat? He beat Fiddler, actually. He should be getting a title shot on the way to Wrestle Kingdom. I think that could be a role for him.
That works.
That works out. He lost to Hinari, so never title shot. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. He'll surely be brought back next year.
Good tournament, though.
Yeah. Talk about Hiroki Goto, Dylan.
I think I alluded to it earlier. I thought the first half of this tournament was just really bad, like up and down. I thought all of the shows were boring. Like I didn't think there was anything special. Even the matches people were trying to say were good, I think would have been forgotten about in the blink of an eye in other years for the most part. And then for whatever reason, like that crowd in Nagoya and Cork and all these places just erupted for Goto.
It was crazy, right? So mid-tour, it felt like suddenly people's interest in going to these G1 Climax shows completely sparked in comparison to the first half.
Yeah, that's a great point. They did big numbers constantly after that. Like I really think that Cork and like back-to-back shows, that crowd was so damn hot for all of them that it felt like the energy just like was a snowball effect where it just grew and grew, and it started with him. Like Goto captured the hearts of the fans, and he was you kind of compare it to like, remember the old, a decade ago Tenzan was kind of that guy, like where the fans were just rallying behind him all of a sudden, and he got all of this huge support. And Goto did it and had these amazing matches. Again, him and Takeshita was my favorite match of the tournament. Like
emotionally, that definitely was one of the greatest matches of the tournament.
I couldn't believe it that he won. Like I
Me
was
neither.
shocked. Yeah. And the thing is, why does New Japan make wrestling so hard? Because you had it simple. A guy that everyone loves, and you just have him win. And then everyone's happy, and you get all these big shows coming off of it, and critical acclaim. Why couldn't they just do that? Like, why do we have to mess around and do all this goofy stuff to get there when you have it so easy?
So easy, and they stumbled into it in the.
That's a great point.
They didn't want to do that, actually.
Yeah, that's another. And the fans loved them, and then too. So, I mean. It's clear that
I want to give them. I want to give them one thing. I want to give them that this was one of the stories that probably will be the standout story of this tournament.
I agree.
It was nothing that, in the end, was decisive for the tournament, but it was a very nice and relatable story mid-tour that Hiroki Goto suddenly gets his winning streak in spite of being the oldest guy in the tournament, having his kids ringside and seeing daddy win in the main event. It was just a very lovely story on a long, long tour that desperately needs some stories to latch onto.
Absolutely. I think he had the most momentum of any person in this tournament. I would say, and they of course blew it and let it fizzle out by the end. And I don't think it. Oh, like you said earlier that it's a guarantee that they're going to lose the tag titles immediately coming off this tournament.
Absolutely sure about that.
And you're probably right at the end of the day. And he is in the same spot he was in before, which is so. It's criminal that that's the truth, because he should be going to the Dome to win the title, like for the first time. That is the best story you could have, and they just blew it. At the very least, again, much like Naito, and I wasn't even a fan of Naito. Goto was one of the best people in the tournament, wrestling wise. But if you just have two wrestling brain cells, you should know that Naito would have improved your semifinal house if he were in there. And I think Goto, what did you gain by not having him in there? Like that, you would have had an amazing crowd. You could have built a moment. Beating him could have meant something as well. Like if you had done that, you could have done that. But to have him not advance, it doesn't make any sense to me ultimately. But they did it. That was their choice. And at least we had a good run. At least he had a good run in the tournament. He did a lot better. When I was doing predictions, he was near the bottom of the block. I didn't have him at the bottom, but he was like tied for 8th or something. And he did good.
That really bothered me this year with the tournament structure they have, because they desperately want everyone on the bottom being balanced out. Yeah. And that's what Goto fell to ultimately on the final day of block action. He lost to Hinari, who himself will not gain anything from the victory he had over Hiroki Goto, because they are all on the same level. They all have 8 points. And given the tournament structure, I would have thought that they handled this differently this year, but they still gave out the same amount of points to the same amount of people they do every year. And this time it really bothered me for the first time. I was very indifferent to it years now, because I know how this works out. But given the roster that they have, I think they really need to tell you who the top guys are going forward and who the bottom guys are going forward, because with the guys that have left in the main event position, there was so much clawing and fighting over the positions that got opened up, that you need to tell your fan base who is the guys we can rely on to. But now they still are back to balancing everything out to the point that you really don't know if Goto, Bolton, Uemura, and Phantasmo are on one level, or are they not? That's one of the issues that I have with the tournament booking.
That's a great point as well. That's another flaw. And why we're at where we're at, pretty much. Because they also balance the top out as well.
Exactly.
Like you said, there's no clear cut.
They did, the one thing that they did was Zack Sabre Jr. getting 14 points. That is something that I called for before the tournament. There needs to be one guy that runs all the way through the tournament, and that's what they did. And that I liked. And
that was also, good. Good point.
And with Block A, they also had Callum Newman at the bottom of the block, but Block B was a symptom of their G1 booking of the past years, and there is no reason really to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like you said, it was very cool that Zach, he had already clinched the number 1 spot on the last night, and then he just won again anyway. And then he won the tournament. That's how you push people. They win a lot, ultimately.
It's very simple, yes. And you don't balance it out. That's
exactly. And that's how you make stars. With guys like Okada didn't become the Rainmaker by getting 8 points 5 years in a row in the G1. He was the guy for all this time. He was always at or near the top.
And what the difference between Okada and the Reiwa Three Musketeers was? They told you Okada was the guy, and they booked him like he's the guy. With the Reiwa Three, they told you, okay, these are the three, and they don't book them like they are the guys.
Yeah, and they've really, like I said, they basically abandoned the Three Musketeers thing now,
Yep.
and they're not
Yep,
even
yep.
like they don't push them as the future like of the company. Like I said, Tsuji is the one that they've done that with, that they've actually at least put effort into. Umino was ninth place in his block. Like that's not the future.
No.
Like what are they doing? It doesn't make any sense. But just like much of this tournament overall, you could say. But Goto though, man, one of my everybody knows he was always my favorite guy in the New Japan system. I thought he was the best wrestler, and I still think he's the best wrestler. I think outside of someone else who is not in New Japan right now that was in the tournament. But
Yes.
Goto's great.
Goto is great. Hinare, the never openweight champion. In Block B, he didn't stand out. He had a lot of goodish matches. I mean, I like the guy. I like his approach. That's why I probably rate him higher than some people will, and that's probably not really fair to assess him. But I like the guy. But I can see that he probably didn't have the best tournament in this block. Still, though, some good matches here and there. The one with Uemura probably stands out, and the one with Cobb was good too, with Tsuji as well. That's the guys that he can have good matches with. In comparison to Block A, he was better than most in Block A, I would say. But here in
Yeah.
Block B, he was probably at the bottom.
Yeah, he's another one. Like if you flipped him with somebody in A block, like the A block guy would look way better, and he would look a lot worse. Like I think if he were there. So I have a similar take on both him and Cobb. I thought they had very similar tournaments in that they're guys that I liked. I definitely like Cobb, and Hinare was good-ish. Like I wouldn't say I loved him. Cobb I thought was underrated for a while, but I came away with kind of similar thoughts on both of them. A lot of their matches really were samey. Like they really started to bleed together. Like their style, there just wasn't a lot of variety in their matches in comparison to a lot of these other guys. And their match together had to be one of my least favorite matches of the tournament. I thought that match was such a slog, like so like. You talk about some of these guys we talked about try hard.
It's one of those matches that you don't really have to watch. You know how the match went.
Yeah, exactly. And like like I said, some of these guys try hard. These guys had their foot in neutral the whole like the gear was in neutral the whole time. No effort for their style. You've seen it done so much better by them against other people. Like Cobb versus Bolton was a great match. And Hinari had some good matches too. It's not like I'm saying he's a bad worker, but I definitely think he gets exposed a little when you put him in this kind of situation against. If you put him in there against Goto, Takeshita, and all of these guys, you see that he doesn't really measure up. Ultimately,
I'm also taking Jeff Cobb here into the talking.
There
really
similar tournaments.
There really is no good reason to have Jeff Cobb in this tournament unless you push him as a big roadblock guy. But he was not pushed as such. He used to be when he had this great tournament run and finally fell to Okada a couple of years ago. That was really good. But as a guy on number 5, I don't think he really adds anything.
Well, they did do that with him a little bit because he was leading the block until basically the end.
Yeah. But then everything was balanced out once again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. That end. It's like they kind of teased that they were doing that, but then they backed off of it, like you said. So, and Hinari, they didn't really show a lot of respect to the Never title, but he was in that glut of people. Title. Exactly. Like, we're not losing sleep over it. I would say, like, I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody's saying, damn, how could they let the Never champion not advance? Overall. But again, they weren't bad. Cobb and Hinari, I have the same opinion on. They weren't bad. I think I like Cobb a little bit better than Hinari. Again, I love that Bolton match a lot. But both guys, like you said, if they were out next year, I'm not losing sleep over it. Like, you could have other guys. I think they're the type of guys that are kind of repetitive, that it's good for them to kind of mix in and out, like have them miss a year and then maybe in a couple of years you bring them back in, like when they're a little bit fresher. Maybe you have some new opponents they can go against. I think they're the kind of guys you might want to just swap in and out, maybe not forever, but just for a year at a time. But I do think they'll both be in, though. I will say.
Yeah, I think so too. When I see Ren Narita, he got a lot of respect in the tournament. He almost made it to the second tournament stage.
Yeah.
When I see Ren Narita, he to me is the definition of a disjointed guy. Where you have Evil in House of Torture completely leaning into the House of Torture shtick. Ren Narita, at some points in his matches, actually tries to wrestle and uses his submission holds. And the thing about him is, he's not good at the House of Torture shtick, and he's not good at the wrestling part either right now.
Yeah.
He's a complete mismatch in this role. He has zero confidence. He carries himself like like just a dude. And I don't know why he got so much respect, because he doesn't really deserve it based on his wrestling.
You know who he's like? Show. Like he's
The
heavyweight
murder
Show.
machine.
Yeah, like that's basically him. A guy who once was a great wrestler. And then it feels like he's doing this stuff, and whatever passion he had has really gone down the drain. Like Show is the epitome of like cashing a paycheck.
Dude,
Like
Sho
ultimately.
Tanaka. It's so crazy. Crazy.
And he's following in his footsteps, because what you said is true. Even when he tries to wrestle, he's not that good. Ultimately, and he remember his match versus Ishii in the TV title tournament.
Sure.
Yeah, like he looked like he was going to be the best worker in the company, like by in a year or two's time, and now he's just totally. There's just not a lot there with him, unfortunately, and they did show him respect, but he is one of the young guys. They're keeping him at least in line. They gave him a lot more than Umino, and I will say that. But why they did that is anybody's. Like, what upside is there with him? Realistically, I think if you put a gun to the people booking this company's head, what upside do you see in this man? I don't think they could give you a good answer. Like, I think he's just another guy that's a trope. They like that he does the House of Torture stuff. It really could be anybody in this role. He just happens to be.
That's the thing with him. He happens to be there, right? And you said he's heavyweight Show, but when you look at the Judo heavyweights in House of Torture, Show is at the top of the list. When you look at the heavyweights in House of Torture, Ren Narita is almost always second to Evil.
Well, they finished with the same points here, and he didn't go on a losing streak, and he was in the harder block. So, I mean, Evil was the
Evil beat the champion.
That is true as well. And he was the founder of the group, so he's always going to be like, number one by default. So like, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, pretty much, it just is what it is with him, and I don't think there's any upside to him in this role. And we'll see. Like, we'll see because how long has Show been in House of Torture?
Let me see. When was that?
It had to be 2020, right?
2021. 2021.
Yeah. So another few years of of this with Narita, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't good. None of his matches were good, and it pains me to say he was
wasn't that actually a good one? Something that you can point to. The highest rated one is against El Fantasma, but I can't quite remember if that was actually good. Also got 4 stars from Dave Meltzer. I don't think it was pretty good.
What?
I'm just reading this off Cage Match here.
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. You're lying about Cage Match. I'm questioning the rating of this is all.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not for me. I'll say that. Maybe some people are into this, but I don't think he. I mean, like I said, he gained he got a lot of respect in the booking wise. Will it go anywhere? I mean, I guess he could be if they have a babyface type of guy as one of the secondary champions, maybe he could be a challenger for one of them, but that's about it.
Yep.
He got a title shot before Umino did.
He did, yes.
Poor Umino, man. He's just taking a beating.
Poor guy, man.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. We're going to talk about Tsuji later. Nosuke Takeshita. I don't think there is any question that he has to be up on the top of this entire tournament. I think it's debatable if you put Takeshita on top or Hiroki Goto.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
I would say you can go either way. I think he is called out by most of our listeners too as their favorite of the tournament. Obviously, he had the best matches. The problem with him and New Japan Pro Wrestling, though, is he's not a New Japan guy. That they are trying their hardest to talk everybody into thinking that he might be back, and he might be back because he's not doing anything in AEW. But what can New Japan realistically do with him that helps them out? I think when you don't have a tournament setting like the G1 Climax, where he obviously lost to some of the guys, and some of them very surprisingly, for example, Oleg Boltin.
Oh, that was a huge shocker. That was a great match.
Huge shocker, great match. But if you have him in a regular setting where AEW once again gets their talk, what can you do with him? DDT ran into a similar problem with him. They just can't have any of their guys defeat Takeshita. New Japan Pro Wrestling is a different animal because they are on a more similar level to AEW. They are surely not looking eye to eye right now. But what can you do with Takeshita in New Japan Pro Wrestling as an AEW guy? There are certain limitations to that. He will surely get a big match in the Tokyo Dome, I'm sure, or we'll get 2 big matches in the Tokyo Dome, I'm sure. Because he is a guy that, unlike any guys in the last couple of years, as an outsider, as someone the New Japan crowd was not familiar with, because lots of fans, we've said that before on this show, lots of fans in Japan are fans of one individual company, and they don't usually watch a lot of other companies. That's the norm. Of course, there are fans like us who watch a lot of different wrestling.
Yeah.
But usually the overall crowd did not know who Takeshita was. He came in and he captured their hearts by storm through just being an outstanding professional wrestler, something that we knew all along. And he, much like you said on the last show that we did, ended up losing to Yota Tsuji in the end. So he completely fulfilled his role within the tournament perfectly. And for him, he gained a lot of respect from the biggest Japanese wrestling company.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like when he got announced, those fans gave him a huge pop. Like he's constantly had great reactions in the tournament. Like I don't think there was any point where it felt like the fans didn't know him, at least in the arena. I'm not saying for the entirety of the New Japan fan base.
Maybe.
In fact, by the end of it, he felt like the biggest star. Actually,
he got one of the biggest reactions when he came out for commentary on the semifinal show.
Yep, yeah, he did. And I think, and obviously, what you said is accurate about him capturing the hearts of the fans, because look at him. Look at this man wrestle. How could you not? The same thing happened with AEW. Like when he came in, and that really was a place nobody knew who he was. And he still, I mean, it was in short order. Everybody was saying, man, we got to push this guy. like who
he will surely be world champion one day. And not so.
Well, it's just one of those things. And, everybody involved in New Japan wants you to believe that Takeshita will be a guy in New Japan. That's one of the biggest talking points, is everyone saying, like, what if they got Takeshita? Like, what if they could sign him away from AEW? Like, he could be the franchise player.
Yeah, that's not happening.
That's the thing. Like, yes, that's true, but that's not what happened. Is the problem.
It's highly unlikely that Takeshita will go back to Japan full time, given the economic state that Japan is in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really it. Like, that's as far as it goes. Ultimately, there's no need to debate or analyze it. It just is what it is. And I mean, it's sad for New Japan and our fans, because, like, we see how great he is. Of course, like, that's the thing. It's not just New Japan. Any company that, again, has 2 wrestling brain cells would want him, and he would make better immediately. Regardless, it doesn't matter if he doesn't job. Like, he still makes your company better. Like with DDT, he makes them better when he's there, even if he never loses. If that were the rules of New Japan, they should bring him in anyway, because he makes their company much better. But it's just not feasible right now. And maybe one day it will be. Maybe, like, he will get fed up in AEW. Maybe he will just be tired of all of that, and he will have saved enough money to where he feels comfortable taking, his family or whatever, like back to Japan. And maybe they will be in a position one day. Maybe New Japan itself will be in a position one day to be like, okay, now we can really, break the bank for somebody. But it just isn't feasible right now, and it's hard to see that happening. But anything's possible. Nobody would have predicted New Japan being here 5 years ago, like where they're at. So
that's correct. Yeah.
The wrestling world changes in really crazy ways. But right now, I would definitely. It hurts to even think about, because I feel like if you think that way, we're just going to be disappointed at the end. But listen, he's going to get that dome match at the very least in the AEW show on January 5th. And I'm sure that he'll be a heavily promoted person on that show. And maybe, and logic would tell us that he will be involved in the Wrestle Kingdom as well. So you can do something with him. I just don't know what that is exactly right now.
Might also be back on the next tour or so, because he beat Hinari, who's the Never champion.
That would be cool. Like,
he's not just like you say, he's not doing anything in AEW anyways.
You said that. So you're giving me credit for your point. Which I mean, you're right. I agree with you. I could have said that, and we would have both been right.
So,
but yeah. Just bring it back. It doesn't matter. Just bring it back, and we'll be happy. But like I said, if you were New Japan right now, what would your plan be for him at the Dome?
The Dome.
Yeah, provided like all things are in play. Like Tony Khan has said yes, like we're gonna be there anyway. Put him in a big match on the 4th.
Let me look at that. The small chance I would have thought was the global title match, but he lost to Finlay in the G1, so that's out the window. That's a good question, actually. I hadn't thought about that because
the fact that you're taking so long to figure it out shows how weak this roster is ultimately, and that's the unfortunate reality, because there actually aren't any real dream matches on this roster right now.
You could always do the third of the trilogy with Yota Tsuji, but I think Yota Tsuji is going to be in a more prominent position on the card.
And we'll talk about this when we get to the card. But where would that be? Because I don't know about that. If you look at the card as it is now, like if he's not in the title match, where's Tsuji gonna be? Exactly,
that's my point. Yeah.
So I mean that would at least make sense if it was Takeshita versus Tsuji, and that would be a major match for both guys. I imagine Takeshita would have to win that though.
I have one match in mind that could work out, given it was one of his first singles matches ever, would be a match against Tanahashi.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like that was my idea for his match. Like it makes perfect sense storyline wise. He could win without harming anybody. And I think you would get a lot of hype for that. Like one more go around, and it would be a lot better than Tanahashi running in the 9th and 10th matches of Evil's run of the tournament to start things.
That's another thing with the words of the president, Dylan. They don't have any weight, because House of Torture is just being House of Torture like they used to be before Tanahashi said they were going to put an end to that.
Yes, accurate.
It's even worse, actually.
Yeah. It's only got
Evil
worse.
Pin Tanahashi.
All of this is true, but maybe they just don't want you to remember that though.
Maybe.
This was all like to them. House of Torture is like an alternate reality.
Yes, you know what also is an alternate reality? Nick Nemeth being global champion.
What a waste that was.
What a waste that was. Incredible.
Yeah, but it's a shame we can't come up with a better match for. Like again, with all due respect to Tanahashi, and that would be cool. But it's a shame that's the best we could come up with, like for Takeshita in a major match. And that's another thing. When people say that want him there so bad, I mean, look, I agree that he's not doing anything in AEW. I don't think there's any guarantee this company would use him as they should. Like, we've seen them fumble things so many times. Like, who's to say they wouldn't screw up with Takeshita like they've done with so many people just recently? Yep. And do you want to see the pain? Like, do you want to go through the pain of seeing Takeshita like fall off and have some stupid feud and everything go awry? Do we want to risk that with Gato?
Oh.
I don't know.
Don't.
It still would at least be something, though. It would be better than what he's doing at AEW. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't be like, oh, he's the savior when we see Gato how he uses his own guys. No. But anyway, he was great. MVP of the tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's...
okay, so let me put it this way.
Like I said, Goto is also up there. I liked Goto a lot.
Here's how, because I was going to say that too. Goto, I thought, had the best story of the tournament and the most emotional investment from the fans. But if you look at all 9 to 10 of their matches with Takeshita going on, Takeshita had the more full. Yeah, purely wrestling, he was better, but Goto was a better overall story than Takeshita. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Happy wrestling anniversary to Takeshita as well today.
Happy wrestling anniversary. 12 years now?
Yep.
Something like that? Yeah.
Yep.
Incredible. 29 years old, the guy. It's he's still not where wrestlers are when they are at their best, and look at him.
He's younger than Tsuji right now.
Aren't a lot of people younger than Tsuji?
He's like 31, right?
Oh, he's 30. Okay, yeah, he's 30.
Yeah. He's not that old.
No, he's not that old. Finlay is also like the same age range, isn't he? Or is he older? I think Finlay is older, right?
How old is Finlay? Let's see here.
Finlay is 31. Okay.
Yeah, see?
Same age range. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's still wild that Takeshita was wrestling so long and that he's younger than guys like different generations. At least Takeshita and Finlay started a similar. Finlay was a little after Takeshita, but Tsuji was definitely after Takeshita, and he's still younger. Yeah.
All right. So then, after the block stages, we had day 17 from the Maku Hari Messe International Conference Hall 9. A very weird building. I don't like these industrial halls for important shows. That's something that I like the wrestling arena look when I have an important show. So I wasn't really into that building. And I think that also dragged down the fans' reactions to the playoff matches. I liked Takagi and Okan. I like the story that Okan looked like the guy who would eventually win, but he's just not able to put Shingo Takagi away. That was a very simple story to follow, and that was a good match, in my opinion. Yota Tsuji against Takeshita was very similar, quality-wise, to the match that they had earlier in the tournament, but I thought that the final minute, and I said that on Twitter, the final minute of them working around the Gene Blaster, I think, was completely outstanding, and worked it to both of their strengths, worked around the spear and the knee strike that Takeshita throws. I absolutely loved it, and I watched it numerous times and thought that Yota Tsuji looked phenomenal beating Takeshita here.
Yeah, I definitely thought this was the better match of the two. Hey, did we skip over Finlay? We didn't talk about his tournament.
I would talk about Finlay when we go to the semis.
Okay. Yeah, Okan and Shingo, I didn't think was that great of a match, to be honest. Their first match was okay, and I thought this match was okay. The problem is that you do all of this complicated stuff with Okan going after the arm, and Shingo just wants to do pumping bombers with it. So they should have just dropped that stuff. Why do they need to do that? Just be two power guys doing beef match. Don't try to think too much. Okan, Shingo's not gonna sell it. Just beef match. The other one was
beef match.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, the other one had a similar issue, I would say, with Tsuji and Takeshita, where it was more about the leg, but I thought it was better done. It wasn't as egregiously blown off as Shingo did in the other match. And then, like you said, the last minute was excellent, and I thought put it over the opening night match, which
what actually most Tsuji matches will be remembered at, because Tsuji is really great in these finishing stretches.
Yeah, and that's really where he stands out, is the explosive finishing stretches he has.
Yep.
Overall, and he really knows how to play that well. Takeshita, obviously a great wrestler, and really bridged the gap for the rest of the match for Tsuji. So a very good match. I personally wouldn't say great, but it was very good overall, and I liked it for sure. And I thought Takeshita went out, like you said, he played his role to pretty much perfection in this tournament. Tsuji, we'll talk about him later. But a good win for him here and a very good match. One of his best in the tournament.
Then
all three of them were three of his best, really. Like, he closed strong, I would say.
He did.
Yeah.
Then they went to Sumo Hall for the final two shows of the G1 Climax, and I said it on our Twitter. I made the comparison. For the double shot, they drew 5,340 for the semifinal show and 8,065 fans for the final on Sunday. It's down compared to last year, but last year, especially for the final, you obviously had Naito and Okada. So given where they are right now with their roster, I think you can say that this was a good draw for them, especially the one on Sunday with the final Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji. So that's good, I would say.
The semifinal was not a good draw at all. I thought that show was a bomb, ultimately. And it shows
yeah.
And even the final, I saw a lot of people say, well, if you take into account they don't have the guys they had last year, that it's good, actually. But the thing is, it's still, like, the number is the number, regardless of who is on the card, And they should want to do better, I would say, even without. Yes, they lost.
It is a reflection of what New Japan is right now.
Exactly. Like, they only have themselves to blame for this. It's not like it magically happened. Where
No. That's correct. Definitely.
Yeah,
that goes into my point of them really not telling you who is actually the guy we can get behind.
Exactly, but I will say the final at least kept it afloat. Like, the semifinal was a bad number. Like, there's just no defending it. The final was the final was a better run, and like I said, I get it that they're not there, but I just don't think that should stop them from wasting the last year and devaluing all of their people and not making any new stars that they had a whole tournament to do and they chose not to. I would say. Like, I also think that played into it as well. And again, taking your top draw and eliminating it before you even has a chance to do this stuff. So all sorts of mistakes were made. I think that's hard to argue with if you look at how things played out. But yes, the final was okay. Like, it wasn't anything to panic about. And I guess that at this point, that's a win. Which is that's sad to say it like that, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. That's where we are.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Dylan, the semifinals and David Finlay's tournament.
I thought he was really good. Like, I thought he had a really strong tournament, up and down. I think even I saw some people that were just hung on forever that tried to say he was bad, and even they're starting to come around. I think. I
was just gonna say, just show me the facts where he actually is bad at. He is another of these dudes where I would say
he's bad, but
yes and no, because he just works the role that he has very well. So what they are giving him is sometimes really weird, but he makes it work very well because he's just a very good professional wrestler, and he has an understanding of what he has to do to get the fans' attention, and that's what he did in this tournament.
Yeah. I thought he did a great job. I thought he was a great foil for Tsuji.
Yes.
I think ideally, if it were up to me, it would have been Goto in Tsuji's role, and you could really have Finlay could have gotten huge heat for being Goto's foil, I think. And I mean, it worked well enough with Tsuji. It was still a really strong match. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that he's a guy that's a great foil player. And I do think I've seen a lot of people say that he tries too hard to be like Jay White, but I think his character is way different when you look at how he approaches his heel work. Now, there was still the match against Takeshita was such a bummer to me because I thought they were having a great match, and then they had to go with the Shillelagh and the Gato and all of that stuff. And like I said, these House of Torture guys, their matches just suck. Like, there's no real positives to them. But he was actually wrestling good, and then they just why did they have to do that? Why do they have to do that with these guys? Because at the start, he was really kind of a heavy hitter type of heel. He hated weakness, and he was a dick. And I'm not in love with a lot of his promos, I will say. When he got to stand out, he's another one of these foreigners that again, I'm sure that that New Japan is telling them to behave how they behave. But I wish that they would just tone it down because it's so over the top and it just never works for me. But as a wrestler, I think he's a very strong performer, and I thought he had a really good tournament. I think it's hard, like I said, it's getting harder to deny him, at least as a talent. His character and his booking, there's definite questions to be asked. But I think in terms of his wrestling, he's a really good player. I think he had some really good matches. I thought the first match with Tsuji was one of the better ones of the first half of the tournament.
Yeah, and also want to say that I really liked his tournament as well. Like I said, he fulfilled his role, and his role ultimately was to be the roadblock. And especially in the Block B final match against Tsuji, he played that role very well. So I don't really have anything bad to say about Finlay. I think he's doing really well for himself. There still is the question that everybody on commentary always hypes up him being the global champion and him wanting to headline Wrestle Kingdom and blah 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 blah. We don't really get anything that we can say, okay, he deserves that position because he's just who he is. He wins some and he loses some. And he's not the dude, but he is always a guy that is in contention and always a guy that's dangerous, and that's a fine role for him to be in. And he's certainly, and that's once again due to their own fault. He's not a guy that you can realistically have headline your shows because he's just not valued as that big of a star because of the booking that he receives.
Yeah, this show basically proved that. He was in the main event. So, and again, like you said, it's their fault that happened that way.
Yeah, if they were handling him better, I think he could be a much bigger star. But there have been so many starts and stops with him. We've been through that multiple times. That's just where we are right now.
Yeah, it's hard to change it at this point. So, again, his future, I mean, it feels like he probably will go. I mean, we thought that last year. Remember, he dropped the belt to Tama Tonga, like unexpectedly, and that led to this weird new title being created. So, unless the plan is to create a new title for this next Wrestle Kingdom to have him lose, then I think he'll probably head in with this belt and put over somebody new to get it. This could be, maybe this is Tsuji's role at the Dome. Like he wins the belt from Finlay, because he did beat him here.
He did. Mm-hmm.
They have a story to go for it. It would at least be a title. I mean, it's not like any of these belts mean anything, but still, if you wanted a spot, I think that's as good of a one as you could have. That would be a big match. And if not him, maybe you would have a Uemura. Maybe they could do that. Did he beat Finlay?
Uemura? Yes, he did.
See, now that could be a good spot for him.
Verify that. Yeah, it was the upset on day one.
Yep. That's right. I think that would be a good spot for him as well. If you have a bigger, like if you want to run Tsuji and Takeshita, Uemura and Finlay, I think that could be a really good mid-card match, and it would at least give him something there. But again, it's not like I'm saying the title makes the man in this case. But I think the match would be good, and Finlay's a good wrestler. But I do agree. Ultimately, I have a hard time seeing him as anything more than he is at this point, which is fine. Like it's fine ultimately, but it could have been better if they weren't how they were.
So the second semifinal, Dylan. Zack Sabre Jr. beat Shingo Takagi. Almost 30 minutes.
Yeah, another really good match, I thought. We always got to say that these guys are two of the more consistent people, and that's why they're so popular. Like everybody was happy that these guys got to be in this big spot, overall. And I do think that obviously, like, it really didn't need to be that long. Neither did Tsuji and Finlay, to be honest, even though I like that match a lot. I think that's something they have done. I will say in general, they've done a good job of getting away from with much of this tournament. I thought the match times were really in control for pretty much the entirety of block play. But still, Zack and Shingo, very consistent. It's not like this matchup, at least for me, and maybe some people felt differently. This wasn't like I was on the edge of my seat on this match. I really thought Zack was going to win. I would have been really surprised to me if Shingo would have won. And same thing with Finlay and Tsuji. It's like Finlay was not going to beat Tsuji on his path to the final. And they played their role well, and these guys also played their role well. But I just think that they were really good matches, but nothing that really grabbed me that much. Like they were like much of the good matches in the early going of the tournament where it was like really good stuff, but not anything that would be in the match of the year or anything I would say was a special performance.
No, on that specific day, we had Yuma Anzai and Yuma Aoyagi for the Triple Crown, which was, I thought, better than both of the semifinal matches we had here.
It's hard to argue. That's the thing. Like when you look at these guys, I go back to that post I talked about. If you could trade all 4 of these young guys that New Japan has for Anzai, you would be stupid to not do that, to not take Anzai. Like he's so far above them in every way that it's ridiculous. Like it's kind of insane that he's and he's a generational talent. Like clearly, it's hard to compare anybody to him specifically, but man, what a great champion. We didn't even talk about his match versus Rei Saito. That might have been my favorite match of his whole title reign.
It was a phenomenal match against Rei Saito.
But the thing is, all of his matches are phenomenal. Like he has there's no weak points in his game. At the end of the day, he really is just an incredible run that he was on, and it's crazy because Aoyagi is somebody I've always said was one of the best overall talents in Japan. But and I know that he wouldn't have anybody left to beat. I get it. But I love his title reign so much. I don't want it to end. Like he's too good. I want him to wrestle everybody and just be amazing. But it at least, I mean, you kind of figured this was going to happen when they put all of those. You had 3 title matches in a month. Like you had to know that they were, trying to pad this reign out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great match. Better than these New Japan matches. Much more exciting at the very least.
Which then brought us to the final of the G1 Climax 34 from Sumo Hall. Quickly going through some of the notes. Taichi and Katsuya Murashima had a really good match in the undercard. Really surprising that Murashima got this position. Very good for him, actually, that he was able to hang with Taichi. Taichi was really visibly angry at his positioning, and he threw this dangerous backdrop at Murashima, channeling Kawada. Stormed away right after the match, but Murashima looked good here.
Kato has also looked good in his undercard matches.
That's right. As well. Yeah, he could look good. Then what was noticeable on this card was that Taiji Ishimori challenged Doki a couple of shows ago for the junior title. That's going to be Doki's first defense. Then in the 5th match, Yoshihashi pinned David Finlay with the Itadaki Kari to challenge him for the global title. Evil pinned Tanahashi because Phantasmo didn't break up the pin. We said that. He tried to lure Phantasmo to torture once again. And Gedo came in. Yeah.
See, I love how you just said that. We were just talking about Finlay a second ago. And what's the first thing they do with him after he advances? He loses to a guy who's not in the tournament. Who's not in the tournament. Like, ridiculous. Okay, let me ask you a question before we get to the finals here. Since we were talking about who's out of the tournament or who could miss next year, do you think Taichi would get in next year? Because they, like Yoshihashi, like, somebody I would say deserves an initiate and all that, but they actually made a little bit of a story about Taichi, like actively being like, I should have been in this. Like, this makes no sense. Why are people in the tournament? He was like, why is Okan in? He finished with less points than me last year. This is stupid. Yeah.
I can see that being a story for him for the first half of 25.
Yeah, I could see him getting in, and that's kind of like him just getting in is like his win ultimately. So yeah, I think he'll be in next year. Like, he'll replace somebody if they don't just add more people and get lazy. Yeah.
Then in the semi-main of the show, Hiromu Takahashi pinned Hinare to probably claim a never openweight title shot. Finally, we have an openweight title match. And then we had the big one, the final of the G1 Climax 34, which was expected to go long because all the other 7 matches finished within 2 hours of the card. I want to say that show really flew by. It was not a bad show. So there was a lot of variety on this show.
I think but this kind of shows you where they're at too, because I remember when the G1 final was this huge event where you had all kinds of big matches. You had the junior title on the line and stuff like that.
It's been like that for the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, but I just think they should make it like it used to be, though. like it's not like they don't have
make
to.
it mean more, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like it has to be this way.
But if you're New Japan in this position right now, you really balance out your title matches.
I mean, they only have. Come on.
I know. You could have had a never open weight title, never open weight 6-man tag team title match.
Yeah. Okay. The only thing that really matters is the final, ultimately, though.
The final, I thought, was very, very good. I went into this match thinking that the strategy that Zack Sabre Jr. should imply here is to keep Yota Tsuji in his distance. While Yota Tsuji is always the guy that needs to create distance to land his spear and the Mauler crash as well. Zack Sabre Jr., though, approached it differently, and that worked out really well for me in the end, and for him, of course, as well. The thing that he did throughout the match is he purposely, of course, he also did his submissions like the Manjigatame that looked incredible against Yota Tsuji. But what he did is he actually went into the areas where you think Yota Tsuji is much better than him, and he attacked Tsuji at those points that Tsuji probably did not expect. For example, he went into a striking duel with Tsuji in a forearm battle. And I thought, okay, that's going to bite Zack Sabre in the ass. But no. Whereas in prior matches where he left his comfort zone, it did bite him in the ass. This time it was actually the right call for him to actually leave his comfort zone, because for the important moments in the match, he was able to reverse the distance that Tsuji needs and the spear he brings. He was able to reverse the spear first into an arm lock, and later on into the match into a triangle choke, a jumping triangle choke, which ultimately led to Tsuji tapping out with a Clarky Cat. So given all that, I think it was mapped out extremely well to have Zack Sabre stand out as the dominant dude in this match, while Yota Tsuji was still able to land some of the spots that he needs to get the crowd going. Final minutes were really strong, in my opinion. I like this a lot, Dylan.
Yeah, this was really good. Like a really good final. And I do have to say, I saw a lot of people, and a lot of our fans as well, that we saw. A lot of our UK fans in particular. We're very happy to see Zack win this title. Or win this
finally came home.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Shout out to Scott Barker, who predicted this in our prediction show at the end of last year, this exact scenario, and he pointed it out. Go back to our thread, and his prediction that was Zack would win the G1 this year, which I'm sure I was like, oh man, I don't know about that. And then I don't remember how I reacted, but I can see myself saying that.
Also, shout out to Lyric Wrestling. She predicted this exact final actually.
Oh, see, great stuff from
Zack
Lyric
Sabre
as well.
coming out in the end.
Yeah, great stuff there. So a lot of Western fans in general, not just the UK. I think Zack is one of the more popular guys with them. So a lot of people were very happy with this decision. You know, on paper, I liked the match a lot. I thought it was really good. And Tsuji, again, I just, he's a guy that did finish this tournament strong. I thought he had a really lackluster tournament, like throughout. With Zack, there's just not a lot to say about his tournament. He was good. We already know he's good. He was as good as we thought he would be. The big thing about him was that he won. Like, ultimately.
Yes. Yeah. There were a few surprising elements, except for winning.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's very good. One of the best in his block, top 3 guy. I probably, like, somebody like Kid stood out to me more because that was like an ascension, kind of. Even though he didn't give like the points made, he was in that blob of A block, but still, he really stood out. But Zack was right up there otherwise, and obviously the win was good. I thought he did a great job in his role versus Tsuji as well. Tsuji, I thought, had a really disappointing tournament through block play, but when it came time, like the chips were down in these big matches, I thought he delivered again. Yeah. I do feel that it's hard to say because I feel like the right call. I feel like you have to, even though I don't think he's ready on his own, I think the right call would be to try anyway. Like, because they need somebody. ultimately. But
since it's not Shota Umino, who else would it be?
Oh, that's right. He's clearly the thing about him is he comes across like the biggest star. Like his issues are in the ring. It's when he walks out, he feels like a guy. Remember when Zack won the semifinal match? Tsuji came out with the fedora on.
Yeah.
What was that? First of all, but it just goes to show that
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He can do whatever he wants.
Exactly. Like he has that vibe to him. That he comes out with the smile, the look, and just the presence he has is so strong. His swag level is top tier. And these other guys, like I said, with Uemura is a better wrestler than Tsuji, but he's so bland that, of course, if you were putting money on one of these guys, Tsuji is the pick. Like he comes across like the biggest star. They're right on that. But like I said, I think I would have just done it anyway, even though I personally don't think he's ready, because you need somebody. And Naito, I mean, we're on the edge. Like, will he even last to the Dome? Like, we're wondering if he loses the title before then. And I don't know if Zack is the one I would want to use Naito's big title loss on if it were me. But I know a lot of fans love Zack and are very happy to win. And he's a really talented guy. So whatever they do, if he were to win the title, I got to be honest though, Dome main eventer. Like, I feel like that is a bridge too far for him. I have to be honest. Yeah. Like, but it could happen.
Yeah, could happen.
Who would he face if he won the title? I think that's the biggest argument against him winning is that who would he face? With Naito, you have an obvious challenger in Hiromu. With Zack, you just have who?
That's that I see that. I agree with. First of all, I agree with what you said about Tsuji. Given the level he's supposed to be, his tournament was not what you'd want out of him, but he was good in the big matches.
Yeah. And to be fair, we've seen guys in the past, like Nakamura was like that, where he'd have a big match here and there, and everyone would say he's the greatest. And then a lot of his other matches were not that great, actually.
And Tsuji is similar in that he's very charismatic, and he can just, he'll make that go away, that some of his matches are not that strong. That's wrestling.
Yeah.
That is wrestling.
I agree with that. You're right.
So you said it. Zack is... There is no surprising element about Zack. He was just very good. So bridging from the final to the general layout of this tournament, Dylan.
Right.
I think it is a good decision to have Zack Sabre Jr. win the tournament and claim his title shot at King of Pro Wrestling. Why that is New Japan Pro Wrestling right now is in a position where they have a real hard time to position someone as the main event guy for Wrestle Kingdom. Now that you've given the G1 Climax to Zack Sabre Jr., who historically has gotten his title matches here and there and who has won the New Japan Cup here and there, but who was never a full main event guy. The question is he now going to be a full main event player? I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily expect that. But with Zack Sabre Jr. winning this tournament now and claiming the title match in October, I think the pressure of the G1 Climax and the G1 Climax having only very few names that can win that, the pressure has gone down now. And I think for New Japan in this current state, this is a good decision. Mm-hmm. Because in years past, we were always scrambling and thinking, who is there that can actually win this tournament? Because there is no chance that this guy is actually, or these guys are actually there to be in a position to main event Wrestle Kingdom. Now they have a couple of more months to build someone to actually be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. Like I said, I don't really see that Zack Sabre Jr. beats Tetsuya Naito. He might. But that still doesn't mean that Zack Sabre Jr. necessarily has to be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom anymore. So the field of potential winners for the G1 Climax next year is much more open, considering the tournament layout here. And that's a good thing, because winning the G1 Climax still means a lot. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to headline Wrestle Kingdom, but you should still be a made guy. after winning the tournament. And I'm sure that Zack Sabre Jr. will be looked at as much more of a bigger player than people used to look at him before the tournament. So where do you stand on this idea that I have about the tournament winner?
Well, I definitely think if Zack wins the belt from Naito, he's made him into the Dome. But first of all, like there's no way you could argue that would happen.
Yeah, but could be happening.
Well, I'm saying I don't think he's going to win either. I'm saying if he won the title, he's the main eventer of the Dome. Like at the end of the day, they're not going to put another match ahead of the belt.
He should be.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's going to win. So I mean, it's a kind of a moot point. But
who did he actually lose to? Shota Umino. Oh yeah.
Well, that's not going to be like I said, and that's the problem. Like you have to give me who his opponent is at Wrestle Kingdom for him to win the belt, and there's just not any. What if with the AEW guys there? So the thing is, and this is another problem, because the answer to that would be Ospreay, but they're not going to main event two foreigners in the Dome, like so that it makes that a moot point as well. I mean, it's very unlikely. I mean, anything's possible, I suppose, with AEW and all of that, but I just can't see that happening at the end of the day. So, and if he loses, then to me, yes, it's a great accomplishment for him to win the G1. Like, there's no question that that's true. Like, nothing can take that away. But then it feels like we're kind of at the same spot with him as we've seen him before.
That's right.
You know, like at the end of the day, and then what was the point of this tournament? Like, nobody really got elevated to the top spot that they needed to that Dome main event spot, which could have happened if you had Tsuji win.
Could have happened, but what do you think about my point that the potential of winning the G1 Climax is much more open to other guys now?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean I do agree with that. Like now you can put it on, but I also don't like that much. Like I think if you're going to, here's my point of view on that. If you believe in someone enough to have them win the G1, then you should believe in them enough to main event the Dome with them. At the end of the day, if you don't believe in them to main event the Dome, then they shouldn't win the G1. Ultimately, like this should be exclusive to your top guys or the springboard to becoming a Dome main eventer. So even if it doesn't automatically qualify you for that, you should put it on a guy you have deemed as one of your top stars at Dome main event level worthy. And let's face it, Sonata was in the main event of the Dome this year. Like you're telling me you could have done that with one of these other guys?
With Naito, that is, of course.
Well, Naito's good, yeah.
With an inbuilt story too.
Yeah.
It's gonna be harder to sell Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. as the Dome final.
Well, yeah, that's why they're not doing it ultimately. So we'll see what their plan is. But I mean, the thing is, there aren't really any good options, though. I feel like like what would you say is the front runner for the Dome main event? Because ultimately, I do agree. Yes, it's more open now, but I just don't know if that's a good thing. I think we should always have the top guys winning the G1. Personally,
I would still think that the Naito and Hiromu is the one that we called for, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario.
Then for the heavyweight title, that would be right, or would yeah.
If Zack wins the title, Zack's in the main event. Like they'll do Naito, Hiromu undercard.
Exactly, and that is something that I can also see.
So who do you see against Zack then?
Yeah, that's the question. Would be Tsuji again?
Off of a loss to Tsuji. Off of a loss to Zack.
There's still a couple of more months that you can.
So how would Tsuji beat Zack to win this main event spot?
That's up to them. There's a couple of more months to go, right?
I feel like there's very bad booking ahead if that is the plan. Like some not good ideas.
I'm not disputing that. That there would be bad.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. So like I said, to me, I think Ospreay is the only legitimate option that they would believe. But
without any New Japan match this year.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think they don't have any stars. I mean, that's the thing. Like, by this happening, to me, yes, I don't think Tsuji's ready, or anybody. It could have been really any of them. Like, they needed somebody, because I don't think any of them are ready in different ways, as I said, and hopefully I explained out pretty decently. They should be telling us, no, Dylan, you're wrong. He's ready. Like, he is ready, and he's proving it. Which, and to be fair, he did show up for those big matches. They should be trying to make him ready, not telling you, no, he's not ready yet, which is what this happened. Like that's what this tournament told us, is that no, this is Zack's time, not like the career veteran's time.
I think in their thinking, this loss to Zack Sabre Jr. can lead to Tsuji getting a bigger win over Zack ultimately. I have that in. I feel that. I can't realistically explain you how they get there, but I can see that be part of their thinking.
Well, I mean, like I said, anything's possible. You cannot dispute that or like discount that, at least right now. I just think, like I said, they would have to really pull some stops out to make that work. And that's the problem with Zack winning, is that there's no other, like, you have to do something that doesn't make sense in some way to get a main event out of that. And I think with Naito, the path is clear. Even though I think it's a bold move with Hiromu, it's not like they've exactly had him on this hot run.
No.
No. By any stretch. Like, I think he's really lost a lot in the last couple of years from where he used to be.
Me too. He has not that cachet that he used to have anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I do think the match means something. Like, even still, and I think it only one.
It means something because they never did it.
Exactly, and that's the only one you can say that about.
And that would be the only logical explanation why they didn't do the match the one time that Naito was heavyweight champion and they took away the belt from Hiromu suddenly.
At least that would be that would at least tie that up, which on paper I really thought was dumb at the time.
I thought so too, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot's happened, and like since then, like a lot's changed in the last, 9-10 months. So, I mean, that may be their big goal. And it's hard for me to come up with a match that would be better if I were running New Japan than that, like Naito versus Hiromu.
Yeah. So,
and we tried with Zack and we failed. So far.
So overall, Dylan, I already let you know my criticisms of the tournament booking with Block B and all the balancing out. What did you think about the overall layout of the tournament and the use of the 2 blocks and the playoff matches?
I give it up to the listeners because I did get some comments on our YouTube page when I put my predictions show up, where I predicted all the matches of the tournament and reacted to the things. When they announced the blocks I put up on YouTube, and I got a comment that was basically to the effect of, like, this tournament isn't going to be about the young guys getting pushed. That guy, I apologize for forgetting who you are. This was like 2 months ago now. You were totally right on that. Should it have been is a different question, but it didn't happen ultimately that way. And I think that's a big problem with this whole tournament. There wasn't that guy to latch on to. I did like another thing that helped Tsuji, I think, when he advanced. I like that they tied in Uemura to his story, that he was kind of fighting for him too. I thought that could have been a major, like, that could lead to a great match in the future. Like, and that's something Tsuji now had, like, that's a mountain for him to climb to get his win back on Uemura, but you also fought for him in the tournament. I thought that was really good storytelling. In general, B Block had a lot of good stories. Nothing that was like all-time classics or anything, but a lot of really good stories with a lot of guys. And A Block I just thought was a train wreck, like up and down. You had some good matches with people like Kid, who got to show out. Okan improved a lot. Totally agree with that opinion. I thought Sonata had an underrated tournament, personally, but there just wasn't a lot of things to hook you as a viewer, I would say. And when you don't go into a tournament with any plans to hook people, I think you end up with what this tournament kind of was, where the first part they really struggled. They had that hot streak with the Korakuen shows and Goto catching fire, and you saw all these attendances rise up. And then things kind of wavered off by the end, and they built up again. I think a lot of Western fans, especially, really bought into Zack winning, and I think that was a great move on that end. And we'll see what they do with it. But in terms of the blocks and the playoffs, what you said earlier, I think, is really true. They really didn't treat this any differently than a lot of the other 2-block tournaments. Ultimately, like they just kind of did a lot of their same stuff that they always do. The same tropes were used. I mean, we talked about it. We were running down the people. A lot of the same stuff we've seen happen before happened in this tournament with guys winning early, then losing late, or losing early and winning late, or big upsets on night one. It's all stuff we've seen a bunch of times before. And they started off right with the play-in tournament. I have questions about the winner and like Newman advancing and how they handled it. It got a lot of good buzz, and it felt like something totally different than we've seen before in this tournament. And I think by the end of the tournament, they squandered all of that, and it was just another G1, and not even a good one, in my opinion.
Where would you rank it amongst the G1s in recent years? In the last 5 years?
Yeah, last 5 years. I mean, that's interesting because I think that it's just been a constant struggle. like the last few years, they've really fallen off, I would say. What was the last?
I would actually make the call and say this was one of the better ones.
Maybe. I mean, last year I thought. I mean, everyone loved the end of the tournament last year with the Ospreay and the Naito and Okada. And I thought last year's tournament had some really. I thought there was a lot of great effort. There was a lot of questionable booking in that one as well, particularly in A block, having all 3 of the Musketeers in the same block. I thought was a bit, and moving Hikuleo ahead of all of them. Nobody liked that. D block really struggled throughout. C block I thought had a lot of great stuff with Ishii, Mad Mikey. We talked about Hinari had some big hard hitting matches, and B block you had Ospreay and Okada like through there. So it's up and down. Because there were a lot of problems in this tournament, I would say, booking wise. But
I want to say I really thought that I said it with Okan, with Takeshita, with Goto, with Uemura, with Tsuji making it through in the end. I thought that there were really good stories that you could follow along throughout the tournament. And if you just only watched the tournament matches themselves, I thought it was a really easy watch.
I thought the first 10 nights were horrible. Like I thought it was such a bad
I wouldn't
tournament.
say they were horrible. Certainly weren't good, but
I thought they were okay. Horrible in that they were so boring, like it's so uninteresting for me. It wasn't like they were having a lot of these broad-field matches outside of Naito and like the House of Torture stuff. But it was a really bad tournament. I would say like through the first 9 nights, and I think that's why we saw things take a shift. Like it was very drastic. Like once they started to actually have good shows, overall. And I can't remember a 9. I mean, we've had dog days of G1 every year, even the good tournaments. But I can't remember a 9 or 10 straight show stretch that was so. Like I said, even stuff that people liked the first 2 nights, I thought were totally not special at all. And I think even now a lot of those matches have gone the way of the dodo in people's memories. Like I don't think they lasted.
It's really
they weren't good. They weren't that good. That's the problem. Like with them.
Yeah.
And
it's really tough in hindsight to rate these G1 climaxes fairly because lots of it blends together and was part of the pandemic. I think I just went through the guys that were in 2022, and I think that might have been the much better tournament than this year.
Yeah.
With a Jonah, Ospreay, and Okada still being in there. 2021 obviously has the big blemish with the final and Okada and Ibushi.
Oh, that was really bad. Yeah. And then 2020 was the weird one. Like I said. Yeah. I'm looking at this 2022 run here. I'm looking at this block here, or these blocks here. That was D block that year was so good, where you had everybody that was involved. You had Finlay, Yoshihashi, Shingo, Ospreay in there. That was really good. But none of these stories really grabbed me that year. Like, you had the Jay and Tama thing in B block. I hated that. You had the Naito and Zack, same place we always are. That's another problem with this too, by the way. We didn't even mention this. How many times do we need to see these guys wrestle? Like I had that with that match, like that being the future. I have the same reaction as I had when Desperado was in the finals of the Best of Super Juniors. We've seen these all so many times, and I have no interest in them. So for me as a fan, it's like enough already. Like we get it. But I mean, they made their choice, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, it just shows you because, like you said, when you look at a lot of these tournaments, they're not that good. like a lot of these G1s, and it hasn't been that good in a long time now, unfortunately. I thought last year's had its ups and downs. Again, I thought there was a lot of good matches in A Block.
Yeah, last year,
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the block booking was really strange last year, the putting the blocks together was really strange last year, which is why the tournament came away weirdly. But I also liked last year's.
Yeah, I liked last year's too, and we were both in agreement. We're like the two on the island of the 4 blocks being good there, and I still feel that way. Like I thought you got to do some different things, like that you didn't get to see. Like we said with this tournament, it's like they're just doing the same stuff that they always do. But it is what it is, and these tournaments they've really struggled. Like I think that's the going away point. When was the last one that really felt special? Because I would say 2018 was like the last one I would say is like, yeah.
Which one was 2018?
That was Ibushi and Tanahashi in the final.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was the tail end of their great run.
Yeah, exactly. Like, ever since then, you look at the 2019 one. That was the one. Remember, they did the first show in Dallas.
Oh,
yeah,
that bombed.
Yeah, that bombed. And then that was the one where Ibushi won in the end again versus Jay White, which a lot of people loved that match. He got a great reaction. I'll give him that. I wasn't a huge fan of that at the time, but
actually,
it was a good.
That was his first win. He won back to back in 19 and 20.
Yeah. Then the second one was Sonata in 20. I wasn't a big fan.
Also liked that match very much. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah,
I remember we talked about that at the time.
It's funny how that's the thing. Your point about the tournaments running together is so true in a lot of ways because we're bringing up the final of the tournament, but there were a lot of great matches in between the blocks as well.
Sure.
That match where that 2018 tournament, you had look at these blocks. You had Goto versus Ibushi in there. You had Ishii versus Ibushi, Goto versus Ishii. Zack was in there. Omega was still around for that. You had remember Omega and Ibushi had their big match in the semifinal? Yes. Or not, it was the block. They didn't have a semifinal that year, but it was it was the unofficial semifinal. Yoshihashi had a great tournament then. Okada was really putting his working boots on for like the first time, I think, in that, because I was always down on his tournaments. Tanahashi was like, that was the end of the Tanahashi run, pretty much being the dude, at that point. So really good stuff. Like 2018 would be where I would go. But since then, it's hard to say this was worse than any of the ones that came before it, but it wasn't better either. I think they're all flawed. But I think I probably came away last year enjoying it overall more. But maybe it's because my expectations were lower. Because I remember the whole time I was arguing with people like, no, Kaito's not advancing. Like, there's no way they're going to do that. Like, they're not going to push these young guys so soon. And then I wish it would have happened, but I unfortunately was correct in that. Here, I thought they actually would do more with these people. And Tsuji got a good enough push, but it also wasn't good enough in a lot of ways. So, and, there was a handful of big matches, I would say, but not a lot special, like, honestly. Like, I think that you would look at the Goto and Takeshita. Yep. Takeshita and Phantasmo was up there.
Zack and Gabe Kidd.
Zack and Kidd, yeah, that would be up there for me as well. The final, I think, would be up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're kind of looking at.
You can also go to the Zack and Shingo matches.
Zack and Shingo's good. I kind of like Zack and Sonata the last night as well. Sonata and Shingo. Yeah, yes. He's all three of those guys.
Zack and Sonata was a really, really strong wrestling match.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that was a really good match. Takeshita had a lot of really strong matches in the tournament. But again, I think there's only a handful you would say was really special. And I think there were more last year that were great than this year. Just purely match quality.
I wanna go to the structure of this tournament once more in the end here, Dylan. I want to say that this tournament structure, and we saw that with Yuya Uemura dropping out ultimately.
Yeah.
The tournament structure with 3 guys advancing allows them to troubleshoot at some level. You know, Yota Tsuji lost to Yuya Uemura, and there would have been no chance for Yota Tsuji to advance anymore in the tournament setting that they had years ago. But now he was able to advance with 1 more victory in spite of losing to a guy who dropped out because of injury. So that, in a way, is a good way to go. And what I said before the tournament started happened in some way and fashion. They, like I said, they had Zack Sabre Jr. run through, and in the other block, it was the 3rd guy that ultimately made it all the way through to the tournament finals. And in the end, it's not as bad for Yota Tsuji because he had 1 more match to wrestle in comparison to Zack Sabre Jr., who just had the semifinals. So, in spite of losing, Yota Tsuji somewhat looked like the dude because he had to wrestle more, and his match times were longer than Zack.
Good point. They pushed that on commentary multiple times that he had wrestled the longest amount of anybody. That's a great point on your part. And and to be fair, now that I think about it, there was less great stuff in this tournament than other G1s. But on the other hand, they did trim a lot of the fat as well. There wasn't as much terrible stuff. Yeah. It was all kind of centered around a couple of guys.
No Yujiro Takahashi, no Toru Yano Stick, no Bad Luck Fale, no Chase Owens or Kenta.
All those guys were gone. So I think I agree with you, actually. Like, now that we really break it down, this was an easier tournament to watch than last year's was. Like, I'm pretty confident to say, like, if you're just a fan picking and choosing, I think the last couple of years may have been better. But if you're watching the whole tournament like we did, this was a much easier tournament to watch. Like, because they cut out all of those bums that are pretty much. So, like, overall, I think I personally, as a fan, would rather have a more consistent tournament with like a higher floor, even if it cost us a lower ceiling. At least, but I don't know if that's better in the grand scheme or not. But just for me, I think I've come around on it. You're right. Like, this was a better tournament to watch than the last couple. I agree with that, even though I do have a lot of issues with it. But I came around. Like, now that we've talked about it all, I agree with you.
Right. Yes. That is basically it, right?
Yeah, I would say, we kind of said it, but just kind of to leave it, like, definitively say it, like, what would be your best match, and who do you think the MVP was?
Best match, I would still go with Takashita and Goto.
Yeah, that's mine too. I agree.
Just because of the emotional connection to Goto and the surprising victory.
Yeah, and great moment.
And the MVP also between the two, but ultimately Takashita.
Yeah, it just depends on what you look for, I think, with MVP. As I said, I think Takeshita had a better tournament in terms of match quality, but Goto, his story was more, it grabbed you much more. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for overall. But I think it's hard to argue that Takeshita wasn't the one by the end that felt like the guy in the tournament. And again, it's partly their own fault, but still, I agree with that.
That is it. And except for New Japan Pro Wrestling, like I said, the Yuma Anzai versus Yuma Aoyagi match from Saturday's All Japan Pro Wrestling show is a definite must-watch if you're a connoisseur of Japanese pro wrestling. That is where it's at. Great match. Yuma Aoyagi is back on top. All Japan Pro Wrestling basically starts out from scratch and completely nixed out all that happened around Katsuhiko Nakajima. Except for that, I have a really good time watching the N1 victory so far, Dylan. I still have to catch up with the last 2 shows. The one from Saturday and today on Sunday. The one on the 12th probably was the weakest one. So definitely check out the Kaito Kiyomiya and Roy Oiwa match that we talked about. It was uploaded on YouTube as well by Pro Wrestling Noah. Great fan service there.
Yeah, amazing match.
Amazing match. absolutely amazing match, and it's at 8.34 on Cage Match. That's too low, in my opinion.
Totally unique style of match that none of the G1 matches were worked like this one, and I thought it was phenomenal. Like just an unbelievably strong match there. By the way, this tournament in one, we're still a little bit, like we're getting through it. We still got a few shows left, obviously. And the matches have been good for the most part. I mean, it's been a cursed tournament in terms of injuries. Like they've had to rebook everything 3 or 4 times now. And that sucks because I think all of those guys, Kotage and Wagner, all would have added a lot if they were able to stick around. But I've really enjoyed Oka in his matches. I think he's pretty much delivered in all of his tournament matches. Tavion Heights has really improved. When he came in that first show, I was like, ugh. And by the end, like now we're getting him, and the effort has been so strong with him. That match with Soya was just beast.
The match with Keno as well was great too.
That was another great match with a surprising win. I don't know if I'm on board with pushing these NXT guys so strong. This guy's literally had like what? How many matches did he have before this tournament?
No idea.
Yeah, like very few. He was green, like really new. And he's just like, here we go. It's Tavion Heights time. I mean, and the crowd loves him, and he's really growing and doing good. Oiwa, I've liked his performances well enough. Inamura's been a standout. Kaito's always great. So you've got a lot of good guys on this roster. It's unfortunate about the injuries that kind of had a black cloud on the
I really like Titus Alexander, by the way. I think he stands out in a way because he came in as just an indie dude, and he has a connection to the crowd, a real natural connection to the crowd that few others have.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious they want him to be their Osprey, kind of, and we'll see how that plays out. I thought he was really shaky. Again, I thought that Heights match was really troubling, to be honest. But he bounced back and had some good matches after that, against the guys like Soya, Keno, and so on and so forth. So definitely a guy who they're going to push a lot, and he's getting some good experience in this tournament. He feels like a good type of guy to have in this tournament. It's in a weird way. This N1 is kind of like a training ground almost for a lot of these guys they've done. And same goes with Oka, who I've really enjoyed. Again, he's a guy that's getting a ton of great experience here. So lots of good stuff there. And we'll see where they go overall. I think it's still really up in the air in terms of winning, like who's going to win the tournament.
It is really up in the air, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the scores right now. It's they've done a lot of interesting things, and again, I bet some of this probably had to be reworked when Wagner got injured, especially.
It's also part of the story, yeah.
Yeah, they're having to do it on the fly, which can lead to weird stuff sometimes. So we'll see. But overall, yeah, good tournament as you would expect with these guys. Let's talk about real quick somebody who Zach mentioned, the man who retired recently, Yoshinari Ogawa. Zach shouted him out in his promo.
That was so cool. That was the first thing he did after winning the tournament. Not like putting himself over, but putting his senpai over. Very good moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool. He basically was like, he strongly said there would be no retirement match or any of that crap. Like he's just gonna leave, like pretty much.
He's gone.
Like my time's up and I am out of here.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about it?
Yes, I said it on Twitter. The guy always gets a bad rep because he was GHC champion 20 years ago and beat Jun Akiyama in a very infamous match.
Yeah.
But Yoshinari Ogawa unquestionably is an incredible technical wrestler. And I shouted that match out on Twitter recently. He had this 35-minute match with Kaito Kiyomiya in 2021. And you could see how incredible he still was in his mid-50s 3 years ago, and it's really unfortunate that this injury is ending this career right now, because I think he still had a lot left to give away to the young guys, to have the young guys learn from him. I'm just hoping that he stays around in the Noah dojo, because he's not only a phenomenal technical wrestler, but he's also a fountain of knowledge of Japanese pro wrestling for the last 30 to 40 years.
Absolutely. I think all that's accurate. I think a lot of the negative reaction in terms of the Akiyama win has really faded. I think a lot of people just don't even know about that because when I first started watching Japanese wrestling, that's what everybody said was like that was such a, and it was like it really was like it was a really bad decision ultimately. Like there's no question that that's true. Led to some fun matches, don't get me wrong. Like for Ogawa as champion, but regardless, it just had major consequences for Akiyama and the company ultimately, like many other things they did with Akiyama back in those days. But as a wrestler, as a talent, I mean, I remember like he's another guy like Kanemaru as well was somewhat similar to this, where I remember defending these guys because a lot of people were negative on them, and nowadays it's like the talk about him when he retired was that he's one of the greatest of all time. Like, and I was like, wow.
I don't know.
Like,
I wouldn't go that far, but he's
like things have really changed. Like things have really changed. And again, I think we've moved so far removed from that 02 year and all that stuff that it's led to that. I really think of him as his best as a tag team wrestler. To be honest with you, I think his run with Misawa, they were a great team in so many matches. And the great thing about Ogawa is that he managed to walk the line of being both completely versatile, but also completely unique to himself as well, because he could work with a Misawa, a Zack Sabre Jr., a Kotaro Suzuki, Chris Ridgway. He made all of that work, any team he was involved in, to the best he could. So I think that, and all of those guys are very unique. Again, in All Japan, I thought he was very underrated. The problem with that was a lot of times the juniors just never got pushed in the 90s in All Japan. So Misawa saw something in him, and they became the tag team, and that really helped out his career. And he really formed a great niche throughout the company, throughout Noah's history. And I think by the end, like you said, he's totally respected. I absolutely loathe the Stinger run, and I think that's very.
I think that is a lot what people remembered in his last couple of years.
Yeah, and it's a shame because he's such a talented guy. Like you said, that Kaito match was so great. If we could have seen him doing more of that stuff, I think it would have been a great run. But he's always somebody, even though he was involved in some horrible dreck like over the last couple of years, there's no doubt his skill set was very strong. Like you can't argue that he was a bad wrestler, even though he was involved in Stinger, which is nobody should ever want to be involved in. And like you said, he has a ton to offer that company, all of the young guys, the few that they have. But he still has a ton to offer, and generations going forward as well. I'm sure he'll stick around in some form. But if you look at his run overall, he had that big run. Otherwise, he was kind of unheralded, like throughout most of the company. He was only the junior champion like one time.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it was a very short reign. I think he had like one successful defense of that. They had to get it off Hayata for a little while, and he was the one.
Sure.
Then he teamed with Hayata as well. Again, nobody wants to remember that. I don't think, but he's a guy that really wrestled his own style, made it a great niche, and again was both versatile and unique to himself. So I think that deserves a lot of credit. And he was like one of the really great junior heavyweight wrestlers for that company. If you talk about legacy, if you talk about quantity to wrestle as long as he has, I think he is one of the great junior wrestlers, I would say. But in a very unique way, not in the way if you're looking for, star ratings or anything like that. Although he did have some big matches like that. But if you just look at his skill set and what he utilized in all of his matches, you really have to appreciate just how great he was. And like you said earlier, he has a ton to offer to this day. And I hope for great health for him. Like now that this thing is over, it's like you said, it sucks. The injury took him out. I definitely wish we could have seen him make it at least one more year to get to that 40th anniversary. But it's okay. Like that's not even a big deal ultimately. Like his career and his legacy is solidified already. And I definitely think he deserves a lot of accolades and a lot of discussion because like Noah's losing, like he really is one of their, flag bearers at the end of the day. Like the guy who's been there from the beginning. There's just not a lot left anymore.
Is there anyone left?
Marufuji.
Marufuji is left. Sugiura was not Didn't he debut after the? He debuted after the founding of Noah.
Yeah, he didn't debut on the first show.
Hitoshi Saito, he's retiring as well.
Yep, that's right. Although they're teasing bringing him back for that tag title match with him and Yone versus Sugiura and Marufuji.
Yeah. He has not retired yet, so that's
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Sugiura didn't start until the end of the year, like after the first year of Noah. So you're right on that end. So yeah, really, Marufuji and Saito like are the ones that are there, I suppose.
It's been a long time. It's been 24 years, so.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, this day was going to come eventually, at the end of the day. But still, definitely worthy. And I watched some of his great tag matches again. Just look at all of the great matches he had with Misawa, with Zack, to make that much of a statement that, he, like you said, he was the one that Zack pointed at as soon as he got the biggest win of his entire career. That tells you how much he meant to him, and deservingly so. So congratulations to Yoshinari Ogawa. Amazing career. And I hope that he just has a great health going forward. And maybe we'll see him again down the road in some form or fashion. You know how wrestling is. If anything else, maybe he'll just show up randomly one day and just be like just in the front row or something. Like just sitting and watching.
Yes.
With sunglasses.
Of course, with sunglasses. All right. Yeah, so much for the Eastern Lariat for now, Dylan. I was really happy to get back into action with you talking about the G1 Climax. It's been a great show. Thank you for being there for me, or with me.
Of course. I thank you for being there for me. Thank you for being there for all of us. We all need you, Strigga. You are the one when it comes to everything in life, whether it's vacationing,
everything. Oh wow,
metal music, wrestling. You have a little bit of it all, but you do like onions, so that that proves nobody's perfect at the end of the day. But I really love the show. Glad we were able to get through this whole crazy tournament that we watched here. Lots of stuff that I didn't love, but still, I always enjoy just being a part of the experience, and hopefully all the listeners enjoyed us going down this tournament up and down. N1 coming up. There's still a lot left on the table as well. Like I said, N1 still going on, 5-star still going on. Odo tournament about to start. They announced the brackets for that today. Marigold is going to have their tournament starting, after the 5-star ends. So, same day technically as the 5-star ends. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about going forward as well. We're not hitting the brakes after the G1. We are back in full. It's going to be a lot of fun coming up soon. So everybody, keep following us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Patreon. Subscribe to the YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Give us the 5-star reviews. We need them. We love them. We really, really appreciate everybody out there who appreciates us and likes the show. And hopefully you guys all had fun too.
That is correct. And I want to say this has been it for the Eastern Lariat for now. Thank you all for listening, and goodbye.
Sayonara.